Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Glad to have you with us here on Utah's number one sports talk. We've got Women's College World Series happening. We've got French Open tennis continuing this week. You've got the NHL Stanley Cup final starting. And, of course, the NBA Finals as well. Lots to get to. We're going to have some interesting news in the NFL world, it sounds like. If you were listening to the Rich Eisen show leading into this show, there's apparently a strong and potentially momentous rumor buzzing around NFL circles. So it's been silly watching some of the NFL headlines circle and swirl around Jackson Dart because his teammates didn't appreciate his apparent support of the current sitting president of the United States. I mean, there's all these weird things happening, and it's time to get to football sooner than later. But we've got plenty of basketball, plenty of hockey still left to play, and, of course, the spring sports in the college world with the College World Series and the Women's College World Series are interesting. RSL continues an interesting season, and in the NWSL, your Utah Royals are the number one team in the league right now, if you've been paying attention to that. So, look, we're lucky to live here in this beautiful state. It is a gorgeous early summer day. We live in a postcard, and we should all focus on the gratitude we have for that, even if it's just a deep breath and a The San Antonio Spurs over the weekend, Saturday night prime time Game 7 matchup. Just like the NBA scripted it, baby. They get SGA, their reigning MVP, two-time back-to-back MVP, and Victor Wembanyama, the heir apparent, the future, the alien, the next big star in the NBA, squaring off in Game 7. And the San Antonio Spurs emerge victorious from that. I have beaten this horse to death, but, man, it is going to be a daunting task in the coming years to be able to get past the San Antonio Spurs if they remain healthy and full strength. For the 8th straight season, we will have a new NBA champion. And, of course, the New York Knicks have been waiting in the wings, wondering who it's going to be. Well, it's New York versus San Antonio. And I know San Antonio is like the mid-major television market or whatever, but they have all the appeal, all the star power that anyone could ever ask for. This is a premium matchup in the NBA Finals. And it's easy to just say, well, yeah, it's Victor Wembanyama, and he's a freak, and that's why they're in there. And, of course, that is a massive part of the recipe. That he's the main ingredient in that recipe for the San Antonio Spurs. He's the star of the show. He's clearly a leader on this team despite his youth. And you saw the outpouring of emotion when they did advance. In the post-game interviews, he talked about how he feels like winning for him, it's not just something that he wants, it's a need. It's something that drives him. It's a survival instinct almost for Victor Wembanyama. And quite frankly, I love hearing that, even if it's hyperbole and even if that's him just gassing everything up and exaggerating. I love hearing that from a superstar athlete. I love somebody that in his early days as a star, before he's cashed in on what will eventually be MVP status, before he's firmly established himself as the number one player in the league. And he's way up there. He's very close to that conversation, but he has not yet put himself on that pedestal alone. Hearing him talk about how he's driven not just to be great, not just to put up big numbers, but to win it's beautiful. In an NBA where we spent 2 decades with guys talking about how it's a game, it's a business. Yes, I want to win, but this. I know he wants to win, but that. Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs are ushering in potentially a new era of NBA basketball where we get some heated rivalries back, where we get a little bit more stank on some of these big-time games. And I think this New York-San Antonio series is going to be really interesting. Another factor here in this one was the turnaround that you saw the San Antonio Spurs cap off. I shouldn't say cap off until they've actually won an NBA championship, but they put themselves on the short list of teams that have improved drastically from last season to this season with, again, a team at full health with the development of players and pieces around Victor Wembanyama. He is the headliner, but where would they be without Castle? Where would they be without De'Aaron Fox? Where would they be without Champagnie? Right? This is a team that has done some really, really nice things in accessory to Victor Wembanyama. And the season they had last year was indicative of all that. Yep, you've got some really interesting things going on, but I don't think anybody would have said the San Antonio Spurs are NBA Finals bound if we're talking, in like February of 2025. It feels to me like they are very much ahead of schedule, and that is, again, it's a daunting thing for everybody else in the NBA.
OC, if I may, I did not say.
You may not.
I didn't say that they would be NBA Finals team. I didn't envision that, but I did when we did our season predictions. I did say this team will be a top 3 team in the NBA, and Victor Wembanyama will be the MVP. I wasn't right about the MVP, and I didn't see 60 wins or an NBA Finals berth, but I did see a huge leap from this team. I said if De'Aaron Fox had some injuries last year, Wemby, of course, had some injuries last year. I said those two guys are healthy. They could be in for a big year. I'm feeling pretty good about that. All season I've felt really good about that from the time Wemby had that 40-15 game against the Mavs to start this season. I'm like, okay, MVP looks pretty good. And then their leap looks pretty good. Now they've exceeded that completely, going to the NBA Finals and maybe winning an NBA championship.
Do you know how many wins off the top of your head? Do you know how many wins they had last year?
It was 34, I think.
They had 34 wins last year. They finished the regular season with 62 wins this year. Leap is probably not even the right way to say that. That's a short flight.
Yeah.
It's not just a jump. That is like you went up, you bungeed that thing.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I felt so good about them being a top 3 team, 50-plus win team, and Wemby being an MVP candidate this year, and then making a deep run in the preseason, was because, like I said, they didn't have Fox for a lot of the last part of the season. Wemby missed basically the whole last half of the season with the blood clot issue. They probably would have been at least a 40-win team last year if they have one of those guys the rest of the season, especially if that's Wemby, right? And they make the play-in tournament, and who knows after that. So I was thinking, and then they drafted Dylan Harper this year. We all knew he wasn't going to be a starter, but Stephon Castle was the rookie of the year last year.
You go from rookie of the year to a guy who could, you're picking high enough that you're kind of potentially in that rookie of the year type conversation, and obviously his role was a lot different, but
I felt like everything was lining up for them.
I think
if
you
they
can
could
argue
stay healthy.
that that's probably better for Dylan Harper's long-term prognosis in his career, the fact that he was brought in to be part of a team, not the thing that draws and drives a team, which is going to be one of the difficulties of, certain draft picks, probably not 1 and 2 this year, I don't think, which is interesting because whoever the Utah Jazz pick, and we think it's probably going to be Darren Peterson from Kansas, he is not going to be expected to be the motor that drives everything, right? He's being put into a system and onto a team where he's got to be an important part of it, but he is not the only ticket seller, right? Like Cooper Flagg getting dropped into that situation in Dallas was kind of like we've hit a full reset here, and yes, there's some some talent around you, but this is like you need to be the one that pushes this team forward for the next several years. If A.J. DeBonsa goes number 1 to Washington, they did some work, and I don't think that their situation is as good as the Jazz's situation, but they did some work to, bring in guys and then sit them down, bench them, tank, even with these veteran all-star caliber players on their roster. So I think even A.J. DeBonsa, the number 1 overall draft pick, is going to be allowed to be at least like Robin to somebody else's Batman.
AD may not be healthy ever again. That's a year-to-year thing with him.
You almost don't even say healthy ever again. Like, he better never be healthy in his whole career just because he's had very few seasons you could characterize as fully healthy.
But they also have, even if AD is street clothes, his alter ego for the whole season next year and for the rest of his career, they brought in Trae Young, who is a capable veteran leader himself. So you're right. Like, AJ's not going to have quite that pressure whether he goes to Washington at 1 or the Jazz trade up or he falls at 2 and he's with the Jazz. Like, he's not going to have that Wemby and Cooper Flagg have had.
By the way, did everyone know about the billboard?
I didn't till I saw it in your notes. I looked it up and found it. Yeah.
Did everyone know about the Utah Wantsa DeBonsa? The
Jazz
billboard?
Fans wants a DeBonsa.
Jazz fans wants a DeBonsa on I-15 on the billboard. A campaign, an advertising campaign, the trade up for AJ campaign. I was driving past and I didn't see like what company this is actually.
So you saw it on the road.
I saw it on the road.
Okay, not on social media.
No, I was driving down. I was driving down to Pleasant Grove last night, and I'm like, what the. Who put up that?
So did you see it? Did you see it in Utah County, or was it because what
Part
I
of the
saw?
mountain.
Okay, what I saw on social media, it said it had Sugar House in the corner.
Okay,
so I wondered if it was in Sugar House.
No, so I saw the Sugar House thing. Is that like a advertising company? Is there a brewery that wants to sponsor this bad?
Okay, maybe.
I
it's
need
a
to
company,
know.
Yeah.
877-353-0700. Because, again, I'm driving on the freeway. I can't, like, pull over and be like, what? In that bottom right-hand corner, Sugar House what?
It's small enough that unless you're staring at it the whole way till you pass it, you're not really reading.
You can't do that, all right, unless you're in the passenger seat. I don't want people just squinting and veering off to the right trying to get closer. All right,
and I do feel like I need to put this out there. Despite the pun, that was not me. I did not commission the billboard.
You never
cannot
know.
Take credit.
It could have been. But I don't think the Jazz are going to trade up to get AJ. I wouldn't be surprised if there's more conversation, if that flame is lit at some point. And I don't even know if they're going to have to, because the Washington Wizards, just like everyone else, is going to find some reason to fall in love with Darren Peterson at the top of this draft. And the agents for Cam Boozer are working very, very, very hard with some journalists around the league, even some highly reputable journalists around the league, to say, hey, Cam Boozer's in the mix at number 1 and number 2 as well, which none of us actually believe. We got the news last week that AJ and Darren Peterson are only going to do individual workouts for Washington and Utah. Those guys are going to do their individual workouts for the top 2 franchises.
Take that, Memphis.
Which, by the way, is I totally understand why that's what you're doing as a camp, as a player. It's going to be hilarious if there's a team out there that is like, that we're not thinking about, that we're not talking about, that is just massively in love with one of these guys, that then offers some incredible haul to try and move up to grab one of them.
See, that is a trade that I can see Danny and Austin Ainge making, is a trade to move back for some kind of haul of draft picks. Not the trade to move up where you are having to give up some kind of a haul.
You know what's funny is I was kind of like beating the drum of like, hey, your owner loves this guy. Go get this guy. If you're the owner of a team and you have cultivated this path for this individual, and you have a relationship and you know his family, and you feel like he is not only going to be a part of your franchise for the first 5 years, but he's somebody who could be a cornerstone for 10 or 15 because of that. I mean, when the Jazz came down at number 2, I was one of the people that's just like, well, hold on a minute. Why not try to go up to number 1? And then the more you read with Darren Peterson, the more you talk to people, we've done a couple interviews, like the skepticism that I had watching Darren Peterson's college career, I think is mostly absent in NBA circles. I don't think there's a lot of NBA front office people, and we haven't spoken with the Ainges, so their opinion matters more than anyone else's. But it seems like the skepticism that I think I and other college basketball fans, seeing how bizarre his year was at Kansas and being like, I don't want to be part of that. It seems like in the NBA circles, the assumption or the conclusion has come, people have come to the idea that, like, you know what, he just wasn't really cut out for the college thing. And yes, there is the cramping that apparently was a very real issue, and they feel like they figured that out, which, again, I don't know, man. I'm not a doctor, but that whole creatine thing made no sense to me. In any case, it feels like a lot of people have sort of cleared those doubts, and they're ready to say, no, we're good. And Darren Peterson is going to be a franchise-changing player. Whereas if I watched him, you know, in November for Kansas, I am very skeptical of that because of his lack of availability, what seemingly was imperfect communication between him and his head coach. None of that is being held against Darren Peterson right now. So he's going to be a franchise pick. But again, if he goes number 1 or number 2, that player is not going to be given the same task that Victor Wembanyama was expected to shoulder for the San Antonio Spurs, where it's like, look, you have generational abilities, and we want you to manifest those and prove them to us, and we want you to do it right now. And again, the San Antonio Spurs did a really great job of surrounding him with exactly what he needed. And it's not like it's been easy for the Spurs. I mean, they got as lucky as a franchise can get in winning the lottery that gives you Victor Wembanyama. But then you had the unexpected or the not fully expected changeover in power from Greg Popovich, health-related reasons. They had to do that succession plan, I think, a lot quicker than they really wanted to. His successor, by the way, Papa Mitch, he's in his first full season as a San Antonio Spurs head coach. He's in the finals.
Yeah, he coached all but 5 games last year, just to be clear there. So he's in technically his first full season, but this is his second season in for all intents and purposes.
Which is still massively impressive.
Still very impressive.
And so San Antonio had to do some things that were imperfect, finding a way to fit everybody in that locker room into the same vision. It's not as simple as I want to make it as a fan, just saying, like, well, you got Victor Wembanyama, so you're golden. Yes, there is some of that, but we have seen plenty of generationally talented basketball players not win championships, not be good teammates, not have an easy time integrating, not having the guys around them integrate and follow well, all that kind of stuff. So I'm impressed with San Antonio. I'm impressed with their turnaround. And it's not the best one we've seen in NBA history, but it's up there. It's close.
It's very close. I do feel like, again, talent-wise, they were a much better team than their 34 wins would have suggested last year, and makes it different than some of the other, like, 30-plus win turnarounds that we've seen. Like, the one that I can think of off the top of my head, 2 Phoenix Suns ones, actually. Steve Nash, 05 team, coming from Dallas as a free agent. They had a 30-something win turnaround. That team, not massively talented on the not talented enough on the margins. They had Sean Marion, they had a young Amari Stoudemire, and they added Steve Nash. But not beyond that, not talented enough. Steve Nash elevated the rest of that group, right, including those guys. The Charles Barkley going to the Suns in the early '90s when they went to the finals, that was a huge turnaround as well for them. So
the largest turnaround ever in NBA history. Do you know what that is?
I do not. Is it 31 wins?
It's 42 wins.
42. Oh yeah, the Pistons last year.
It was the 07-08 Celtics.
Okay. Gotcha.
And obviously
Pistons had almost one of those too last year, I think.
You have the Spurs, the Spurs in 97-98 added 36 wins.
After they tanked, after they shut David Robinson down early to get Duncan.
There's the theme here, right? In that case, it was acquiring Tim Duncan and then reactivating effectively David Robinson, which is good. And you brought up, I think, the most important point here when we try to attach this, we try to localize this. Look, we saw a big, fat, important turnaround from Utah football last year. And because of all the postseason tomfoolery and the drama and the changeover with the coaching staff and the recruiting issues that came with that, I think how impressive and important that was for the team and for the program got washed away because the perfect ending was no longer a perfect ending, right? Kyle Whittingham decided, I'm not going to walk away on this incredible turnaround note. And I kind of understand why. I think if he would have beat BYU, maybe he walks away. Maybe he's done. Maybe he's fully satisfied. If they would have beat BYU, then they would have at least been in the conference championship game. They probably had a better chance to win it than anyone else, but Texas Tech was not going to be denied, at least in the Big 12. So, like, it was almost the storybook ending, but that is one of the greatest sports turnarounds we have ever seen. I'm giving you all these NBA sort of like, oh, yeah, that was those 07-08 Celtics. Remember that? And you probably remember it, but you don't have an emotional attachment to it. You don't care about it unless you're a weird Celtics fan living in Salt Lake City, Utah. That turnaround from your University of Utah football team last year was one of the most important turnarounds we've seen. You could make an argument that Urban Meyer's first year, right? I love Ron McBride. I love Ron McBride. Because of him, I actually got to have a real college football experience. And without him, I wouldn't have, and I am eternally grateful to him. So nobody was happy when he got fired. But then when Urban Meyer showed up and suddenly your team becomes nationally relevant after being kind of like, oh, man, what are we going to do next? Your team becomes nationally relevant in Urban's first year, 10-2, wins a Liberty Bowl, and suddenly people are like, wait, what is going on in Utah? And obviously that started, James, if you're watching on the YouTube with the Brian Windhorst post.
What is going on in Utah?
And then all of a sudden, right, an undefeated team, and suddenly Utah football is like, whoa, that was a turnaround season that was the same players, right? This was not exact equivalent to what we're seeing in these NBA circles, but it was a new coaching staff. But in those days, back in those days, children, you couldn't bring in a whole new roster when the coaching staff was new. That was Urban Meyer coming in and coaching Ron McBride's guys, coaching Morgan Scalley and Sione Pua. And, hey, sorry about your health, Brett Elliott, but all of a sudden Alex Bleepin Smith is there, and this kid named Eric Weddle is a nobody freshman that people didn't think was a big-time recruit and maybe is going to be an NFL Hall of Famer and now is public enemy number 1 for the University of Michigan, and I can't wait to talk about that here in a few minutes. But that was a massive turnaround. This past season for Utah football, massive, massive turnaround. And for the San Antonio Spurs heading to the NBA Finals, it's more of a like strategic by design, this is kind of what we hoped and expected would happen turnaround, but it is still incredibly impressive. And it's something that matters to you as a fan of sports here in the state of Utah, because this is what the Utah Jazz are going to try to achieve, and they're not going to be patient about it. You shouldn't let them be patient about it. They're not going to wait. They're not going to rest. Next year, the governor chip is off. The tanking stuff is done. This is the season that the Utah Jazz want to have. The one that the San Antonio Spurs just completed is the one that the Utah Jazz want to have. Now, you can want in one hand and you know what in the other and see which one fills up first, but there is a more realistic picture here now with the San Antonio Spurs being removed from it here for just a second. For just the Utah Jazz, a 20-plus win improvement over maybe a 30-plus win improvement over next year is like, it has to be 20-plus wins. 30-plus wins would be a great turnaround season, would be something that we would have real cause to celebrate over.
Would be title contention worthy. 20-plus wins is right on track. You're in the playoffs.
You're in the playoffs at least. 30-plus wins, now we're talking about, all right, now we can have an expectation for this team. And again, those expectations all have to be tempered and colored by the fact that, Oklahoma City is still going to be looming out there. Chet Holmgren is going to be dealing with a years-long, worth of regret and embarrassment over what happened in Game 7. And the San Antonio Spurs ain't going nowhere. But if you can parse things out and just say, well, what about what the Utah Jazz – like, you need – it might not be 42 games like we saw from the 07-08 Celtics. It's not going to be 36 games like you saw for the 97-98 San Antonio Spurs. But it better dang well be 25-30 for this Utah Jazz team.
Puts you around 45-ish wins if it's somewhere in there. 45 to 50 wins.
Trying to see how this is the. So the Pistons last year were trying to put themselves in the same category, and they tweeted out on January 25th, 2025. So it's an old list now. It's a year and a half old, but you could put the Pistons on it. But the top 10 single-season turnarounds in NBA history: Celtics with a 42-win improvement, Spurs with a 36-win improvement, the 99-2000 Lakers, 36 wins, the 89-90 Spurs. I hate that the Spurs have now done this 3 times.
I know.
They got 35 wins better. 04-05 Suns, James, you just referenced them. 33-win improvement. 79-80, the Celtics improved 32 wins. And so Utah Jazz, next year I need you in this category, okay? The 69-70 Milwaukee Bucks, plus 29 wins. The 08-09 Miami Heat, plus 28 wins. The 74-75 Nuggets, plus 28 wins. The 12-13 New Jersey Nets, 27 wins. The Thunder in 2009-2010, 27 wins, and the 88-89 Suns plus 27 wins.
Yeah.
Those are some big turnarounds, and your Utah Jazz, I'm obviously using the Spurs as a comparative context here. They're not going to be the Jazz. I don't expect to be in the NBA Finals next year.
Or a 60-win team in the regular season.
But if we're talking about improvement, if we're talking about, all right, what is supposed to happen when you stop deliberately tanking and start winning? Well, if you have talent on your roster, which this Utah Jazz team does, and that is obviously a common thread in all those top 10 teams that I just named when it comes to their turnaround, this is a Utah Jazz team that has better pieces. And what did you say about the Spurs last year, James? Their talent was not in accord with the wins that they had last year.
Yeah, they had bad injury luck with their 2 best players. Yeah.
And the Utah Jazz had bad injury situations. It had nothing to do with luck, but it was just
deliberately bad injury situation.
And by the way, so did the Washington Wizards. I don't think the Wizards are quite as well set up. I think they've got a lot of depth questions that they're going to have to continue to figure out. I think the Jazz are in a much better situation there. I know the Jazz are in a much better situation there. And you're going to get this Walker Kessler deal done. It sounds like to the tune of $25 to $30 million a year, which, according to all of our conversation with Gordy Chiesa, that's kind of a bargain for Walker Kessler.
If he doesn't tear his shoulder, I don't know what the actual shoulder injury was. If he doesn't have this season-ending shoulder injury 5 or 6 games into the season, and he duplicates what he did the year before, or improves on it and is an all-star maybe, like, he's absolutely making over $30 million a year. So you don't want you don't want one of your young players and maybe a future star, or at least a very important starter for you, to have a season-ending injury that early in the season and lose a development year like that. But it helps him financially. It absolutely does.
So Utah Jazz, 27 wins, and then we're good. Add 27, and then I won't complain.
Yeah.
And you'll be at least a play-in team, probably a playoff team in that case. All right, we got to take a break here. Dan Sorensen, managing director, Ute Zone publisher, joins us. Some big news for Ute Zone. They're switching spots. Ute Zone is moving to On3. We'll talk about the how and the why, and of course, take a look at the latest on the recruiting trail and a preview, much too early preview of the upcoming college football season with Dan Sorensen next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Some breaking news from the NFL, as Rich Eisen was hinting towards and alluding to, but didn't actually report on. And I started the show doing the same thing. We know what the breaking news is, as we're about to get to Dan Sorensen of Ute Zone. The Los Angeles Rams have acquired Myles Garrett in exchange for Jared Verse, a 2027 first-round pick, and other considerations. Holy moly. The best pass rusher currently in the NFL has been acquired by the LA Rams. They are going all in on trying to win another Super Bowl while they still have Matt Stafford. Wow. We'll talk about that more a little bit later. Dan Sorensen had some breaking news of his own regarding Ute Zone, and we'll talk with him about that and other things. Dan, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. It's a fun day when something like that drops into your lap while you're doing sports talk radio.
Absolutely. Look, this can be the doldrums of summer, right? So getting news that's interesting and exciting, especially if you're a Rams fan, you can't ask for more than that.
Let's talk about your news, though. Ute Zone is moving to On 3. How did this come about? The how and the why? Walk me through it.
Yeah, well, so, those of us that have known us or those people that have known us for a while, they know that our specialty is recruiting and talking about some of those insider things that happen from a roster management perspective. And there was an opportunity that arose for us to align with On3 and join them as a network. And it was a really easy call. Look, they're one of the fastest growing sports outlets that there is. The things that they're doing to cover things like NIL or the new world and landscape of college football, the transfer portal, both on the basketball and the football side. We've watched them grow over the years and been really impressed with the engine that they've built. And then when they started to get some of the heavy hitter national analysts, guys like Brandon Huffman and Greg Biggins and Alan True, it became a really easy decision. So we made the move over, and we're really excited about it. We feel like this is an opportunity for us to help us grow the site and the community. I mean, we are the largest online community for University of Utah fans, and we've the most active, certainly, and we've been that way for almost 20 years. And so this is a partner that we think can take us well into the future, and we're really excited about it. And people that want to jump in, they can join us over the next 48 hours. We got 75% off of an annual subscription. So $30 will basically get you a year's worth of access. And we're doing all kinds of things in terms of reporting and things on recruiting visitor weekends and stuff like that. So people that are interested, we'd love to have you come join the conversation.
Love it. Hopefully this ends up being exactly what you and everyone else out there at Ute Zone want it to be. But now let's talk about this University of Utah football team. I was just ranting and raving about how, last season was one of the best turnarounds we've seen in Utah football history. And it kind of got lost in the postseason shuffle for obvious reasons, right? The changeover in the coaching staff, the recruiting fallout that happened because of that. And I know you guys have been on top of all of that. But in your mind, is this team, especially from a recruiting standpoint, both out of the transfer portal and on the high school front, are they prepared to, heading into this 2026 campaign, capitalize on the turnaround that last year represented and continue to improve and to build upon that drastic turnaround from a year ago?
Yeah, I really think that they are, and I do for a couple of reasons. Number one is, look, last year and the year prior are the best example, but college football especially, the quarterback position matters probably more than any other position. And when you have strong and competent quarterback play, you're going to be positioned to win a lot more games. And that sounds like a no-brainer thing, but it really mattered. And so even with Devin Dampier playing most of the season hurt last year, and then Bird Ficklin emerging as a threat and somebody that was a capable backup, that was the real catalyst that drove Utah to win double-digit games last year. So the fact that, they went out, they lost a few guys in the transfer portal. Yes, they picked up others, but I think the biggest story is who they hung on to, and the fact that both Dampier, who had options, Bird Ficklin had options, they were able to hang on to both of those guys, and they've got as strong a quarterback room as they've had in a long, long time. Now, I'm not saying any of those guys are going to be better than Cam Rising at his peak was, or Tyler Huntley at his peak, but the room in general is deeper. And with the type of offense Utah is looking to play, there's a real opportunity for those guys to make a splash and put up some numbers. And if that happens, this football team is going to win a lot of games. Yeah, there's a lot of guys on defense that they needed to replace, and I think that they did a fairly good job of that via the transfer portal, especially at the cornerback position and the defensive tackle position. But the fact that they've got those two quarterbacks, they've got guys that I think are going to be able to put up numbers and points on the board this fall. I think that that's going to go a long way to helping Morgan Scalley come out of the gate and win a lot of games. If the offense plays well and the defense plays up to par, even for what they did last year, I think the floor is double-digit wins with this Utah team. The national media won't agree with me because of what was lost, but when you watch it and you see what they've got, there's absolutely potential for that.
Dan Sorensen, our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking all things Utes. Ute Zone is now switching over to On3. They've got membership specials right now to celebrate the changeover. Take advantage of that. Get great coverage on your favorite athletic program up here at the University of Utah. All right, so again, I'm skewing some of these questions towards the newcomers because you had to rebuild this roster with some attrition, some graduation. Obviously, the offensive line was a huge part of what they were able to do last year. And you and I talked during spring ball about, Kelvin Obot and what he represents, the body he's got, and how quickly he can grow into this. It sounds like he might start at guard and then maybe bump out when he's more ready to play tackle. Is that what you're getting as well from the coaching staff and your insiders?
Yeah, that's absolutely what I'm getting, and we saw it a lot in the spring, and they talked about it. The coaches talked about it towards the end of the spring, but it's when you look at what that offensive line is going to look like. Zeraway Williams looks like he's going to be the starter at left tackle. Frankly, the right tackle position might be the most interesting, and I know that you asked about Obot, but the most interesting battle this fall between Isaiah Garcia and Cedric Jefferson, Jefferson being the transfer that came in from Montana State. But Garcia had a great spring, and even post-spring, I've been hearing a lot of things about how he's grown and he's getting ready. And, he was a four-star kid coming out of high school, and he's had a lot of injuries since he's been up on the hill, but he's a guy that's going to have an opportunity to really make a splash this fall and potentially unseat the transfer that everybody expected to start. So with those guys battling it out at tackle, it makes sense that Obot would be pushed inside the guard. Right now he's battling Solatoa Mo'iai as at left guard, and I think that's what we're going to see heading into fall camp, and it's going to be really interesting to see which of those guys comes out ahead. Mo'iai is of course a senior. He's played a lot of football, probably more snaps for the Utes than anybody else on that offensive line. The fact that Obot's even in the conversation says all you need to know about a true freshman that has all of the potential in the world. So the fact that they're going to try to get him on the field, whether he starts or not, he's going to be that first guy off the bench, kind of like what we saw with Keith Olson last year, and they can probably plug him into basically 4 of the 5 spots if somebody goes down or if they need to shuffle things around. So I think that whether he starts or not, we're going to see a lot of Kelvin Obot this fall, and they're going to get him as many reps as possible. But he's absolutely going to be in the game in terms of trying to win that starting spot and be one of the few and the rare that can be a potential true freshman starter on the offensive line for the Utes.
Recruiting is the business that never sleeps. You know this a lot better than I. How is this next class shaping up for Morgan Scalley? His first real class, because there's not going to be all of this frenzy and insanity around the coaching changeover. How is his next class shaping up?
Yeah, it's starting to shape up fairly nicely. They don't have a lot in terms of commitments yet. They've basically got 3 guys that are committed. Jonah Miley, who's a local running back, a kid that he's a number 12 player in the state of Utah this year. It's a really loaded class once again in the state of Utah.
I don't mean to interrupt you, Dan. Shout out, by the way, to Jonah Miley. His dad, Marcus Miley, was my teammate at Weber State University, got a Super Bowl ring with the Saints, and is just an absolute monster of a football player that, if the transfer portal existed back then, would not have finished his career at Weber State. So this is a legacy type player that, again, his dad would have been at a Utah or at a BYU or somewhere like that if transfers were so free and accessible back then. Didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh no, and that's awesome. And look, and it makes sense when you look at Jonah. You know, he's a chip off the old block. He's outstanding athlete, very strong running back. He's got a great physique, an amazing mentality and attitude. He's a kid that Ute fans I think are going to love. But so Miley's committed at running back. Tiki Teeples is a defensive tackle out of Arizona. 6'4", 265. He's committed. Jack Henderson is an edge rusher out of Idaho, the number one player in the state of Idaho this year. So Kelvin Obot was that last year. The Utes are doing a lot of great work in the state of Idaho, but Jack Henderson's committed. And so they've got a good start, but there's a lot of work to do. Of course, beginning last weekend, it was the first big official visit weekend for the Utes and for Morgan Scalley. They had 11 kids on campus. And then for the next 3 weekends, we're going to see double-digit kids on campus every single weekend as they try to fill out this class. But a lot of the work that's going to be done for this 2027 class is going to happen in the next 3 weeks. So we're going to see a lot of commitments across the board, not just at Utah, but other places. And it's going to be interesting to watch the dominoes fall. But they've got a good start in the sense that they've got 3 guys that they really want, that were very high on their boards. And they've got a chance to go in and really fill out that roster and bring in some high caliber kids. Every single kid that they're bringing in on official visits has multiple P4 offers. A lot of them have multiple P2 offers. They've got a lot of talent, and it's, you really have to respect Joe DeRazio, the new GM, and the whole recruiting staff. Mason Yellico is the director of scouting. That whole recruiting class or staff, they've done a great job at scouting and identifying guys that are going to be program fits from a scheme perspective and from a culture perspective. And so it's going to be interesting to watch things play out as they start to land commitments. I don't think we're going to see a rush on those commitments for another week to week and a half or so, but we're going to start seeing the dominoes fall relatively soon.
How much is the behind the scenes kind of craziness with this private equity deal a part of recruiting conversations? Are families and high school coaches, are the people that this team is recruiting asking about, aware of what's going on with the private equity deal and Utah football?
Yeah, in terms of the deal in and of itself, not so much. The conversations when it comes to recruiting, they look like there are a couple of factors that play into that. So number one is it is being talked about in the sense that, look, there's going to be assets to help us as we're raising more NIL, giving more opportunities for you to make more money as you're playing at the University of Utah. We'll have this professional arm, these people that are doing business development deals and that are working those things out, and to give you a greater earning opportunity if you're a Ute. And so that is something that's directly relatable to them and their situation, and what that looks like is they're weighing out all of the other factors that come into playing for a school, from scheme fit to whether they like the coaches, to whether they fit in, to where the school is, to how much they'll make in NIL. So that's a factor there. So the fact that Utah can say they've got this apparatus that's being formed that is absolutely committed to helping them to maximize their earning potential with whatever they can make beyond the revenue sharing that they get from the school, that's a big deal. The other thing that they're looking at is less about some of the solid news around it, but more the implication, where when you look at this private equity deal, well, why would a partner come in and invest this money into Utah athletics unless they saw a path to get paid back? And the most logical path to get paid back is a potential inclusion in any sort of P2 expansion. So I'm not saying that kids are getting promised that that's going to happen, but people that are paying close attention, they know that it's a potential thing. if and when that happens, this is a partner that's going to try to help make that kind of thing happen. And so the possibility that Utah might be included in that upper echelon of college football is definitely a conversation that's happening behind the scenes as these kids are having conversations. So, and once again, I'm not saying the Utes are making promises or saying that this is going to happen, but it is something that's being considered.
The spring meetings in the Big Ten and the SEC had a lot of like veiled threats in there, right? Well, if we don't like what's happening, we might look elsewhere. We might think it's doing something else. And obviously, they're the power players. Did any of the statements or the conversation coming out of those two spring meetings lead you to believe that maybe changes could be coming sooner than we expect in the college football, as you mentioned, P2 expansion potentially?
Yeah, I mean, personally, that's, if I tried to read between the lines, that's exactly the way that I looked at it. Now, look, that may be wishful or naive thinking on my part, and I have a vested interest in, the Utes being as high profile as possible, but it really did feel that way. We know that there was the legislation that was introduced in Congress last week, and when you read through it and some of the provisions that are in that legislation, there's no way that that's going to have a chance to pass. But because of that, you saw the sword rattling from the SEC, from certain elements of the Big Ten, and really, I mean, we're seeing some interesting forces at work. The way that the system has unfolded, it really is unsustainable, and not just for the G6 programs, which, if you're a fan of one of those programs, I really feel for you. It's got to be frustrating to watch college football and what it's evolved into, especially if you love like a Utah State or a Wyoming or any of those types of programs. But look, the G4s and even the P2s are having a hard time between making sure that they've got the funds available for what's dictated by the House settlement to the arms race that we're seeing. When you're seeing college football players and college basketball players making significantly better money than NFL and NBA players, something is absolutely broken. And I'm not saying that players shouldn't earn as much as they possibly can, but the system isn't sustainable. And frankly, they're risking killing the golden goose. And so it's not surprising that you're seeing them, the SEC and the Big Ten, talk about these things and frankly make the veiled threats. And I think that they're going to make good on those threats. I do not see this model lasting long. I do think that there is going to be a breakaway, and some schools are going to be included and some are going to be left out. And for football fans in the state of Utah, the hope is that the Utes are one of those that are included. And this is an area in a region that deserves to have that level of football. You see what's happening in the high school ranks, and you see what the colleges have done and the success that they've had, and so you would hope that they're able to get in with whatever that expansion looks like. But I do think it's coming sooner than later. I don't think it's going to wait until the next TV contract round is negotiated. I think with the way that the arms race is, it's too much weight for the system to bear, and cooler heads are probably going to prevail. That also may be wishful thinking, but that's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I'll be holding my breath for about the next 2.5 years to see exactly what happens here. But we're only a few months away from Utah football returning, and that's when we don't have to worry about any of this offseason stuff.
Exactly. So, fingers crossed we'll have a fun and favorable distraction.
Shout out the promotion you're doing at Ute Zone and the transition to On3 one more time, if you don't mind.
Oh, you bet. And really appreciate the opportunity. Look, Ute Zone, we're moving to On3 Rivals. We could not be more excited about the news. Literally hundreds of people have already been subscribing this morning. And so we're getting just a ton of momentum. And people can, for the next 48 hours, they can sign up a year subscription for 75% off. and they can join us there. If you're a longtime subscriber, follow us over. If you're a former subscriber, we'd love to have you back. If you've never subscribed, we'd love for you to come and see what we have to offer and join the community. It's we do the whole hashtag Team Fun there, and we try to keep things fun for Ute fans, and we intend to do the same moving into the future.
Dan, appreciate your time. Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much, man. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon.
Dan Sorensen, publisher over there at Ute Zone. Of course, they have now transitioned to On3, staying on top of all the recruiting stuff, as they always do. Go check them out. 75% off the subscription. Take advantage of the deal right now. All right, a quick hot lunch as the show rolls on. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. I have great news for anyone out there who might be struggling financially, anyone who's worried about, how you're going to pay off the house. All you have to do is predict accurately the championship or near championship results in multiple different leagues, okay? Should be easy enough. James, I don't know if you caught this story. I don't know if all of you out there caught this story. It was pretty well publicized heading into Saturday night. And even on Friday was talked about some. So an individual that was, engaged in the old sports wagering, which we have talked about ad nauseum here on the show, had a four-leg parlay that heading into Saturday night was either going to yield a massive, massive return or was going to be an ultimate disappointment. And when this happens, when you have a parlay with significant payout, there's always these betting apps or even private parties will offer you a buyout on your result, okay? So this individual had laid down a four-leg parlay predicting that Michigan would win the NCAA championship in basketball.
Okay, check.
That the New York Knicks would – win the East.
Check.
Okay. that the San Antonio Spurs would win the West.
Check.
And there was a fourth leg. I got to remind myself what the fourth leg was. The fourth leg was, oh, come on, internet. The fourth leg of the part, I had it in my mind.
Is it a golf thing?
Oh, no, of course. It was the U.S. men's hockey team winning the Olympic gold medal.
Okay, so that was the first of the, okay. So, yeah, check.
So
all four. That's incredible.
So this person obviously was probably doing okay, or is it just extreme degenerate? Because they put $2,500 down on this parlay.
Woo.
Now, you're not a seasoned bettor. If I ask somebody like Jeff Schwartz, what do you think this parlay is going to pay out? He'd probably give us like a pretty accurate number. If I told you a 4-leg championship level parlay, totally predictive. You have to put this in before anyone has competed for any of these things, right?
Yeah. Pre-Olympics in this case and all of that.
$2,500 down. What do you think the payout is if you hit all four?
Is it over $1 million? Like, is it that much? You
Yes.
said you could buy a house with this.
It's $1.7 million.
Oh my gosh.
So, obviously, the three had already cashed heading into Saturday night.
So he's off at that point, like you as you set this up. Whatever betting sports book he put this through offers him a buyout.
So the 4-leg parlay is set to pay $1.7 million. He had a buyout option when the Spurs Thunder series was tied 2-2. He could have sold his ticket for $500,000.
Which, man, that's tough to turn down. $500,000 is pretty good, even if you're like, I'm gonna get 1.2 or whatever that
1.7.
1.2 less with $500,000. You still come out with $500,000. That'd be hard to turn down for me.
Now, how about this? It's 2-2 in that series. $500,000, you say no. As you know, OKC goes up 3-2 in the series.
Yeah, with a blowout win in Game 5, yeah.
The buyout offer comes again. It's like deal or no deal. Ooh, now the odds are stacked against you right now, but we're still going to give you $293,000.
Okay, so a little less than the initial. All right.
This person said, nope, I'm riding with it. Now, Spurs win Game 6. It is now tied 3-3. Here comes another offer, $612,000 and some change.
At that point, you got to just ride with it, right? Especially coming off of a Spurs win, even though that's the highest buyout offer yet. That's over $1 million less than what you get if the Spurs do what they did on Saturday night and come out with the win.
Did not sell. Told DraftKings to take their offer and put it somewhere else.
Shove it.
$1.7 million on the 4-leg parlay.
You made a good deal.
Yeah, and Howie Mandel calls you with one of those beautiful ladies holding a briefcase.
Meghan Markle, shout out to her. She was one of them.
That's right.
At one point, pre-suits.
$1.7 million for USA gold medal, Michigan winning the national championship in college basketball, Knicks winning the East, Spurs winning the West.
That's incredible. And with how dramatic that last leg ended up being, that guy, I mean, I can't imagine how badly he was sweating that West Finals series out. That series went about how I expected it to, but I had no money on the line. The only thing I had it different. I had OKC winning Game 7 at home. I would have lost. All that money if I made that parlay.
By the way, I definitely would sell.
The first time, the $500,000.
$500,000. You're guaranteed $500,000.
I would have too. Yeah, and
I would have sold. I would have sold when the Spurs were tied again 3-3.
See, I would have sold before that. Because $500,000 is a good chunk of change there. I didn't know, not I don't know enough about the betting world to know that they would have offered me a lesser buyout in the middle of the series like that. But
here's the thing. This person is obviously in a position where they're making $2,500 bets, which is either you have a lot of money already or you are just
try to dig yourself out of a hole.
You need to call the numbers that are at the end of every gambling article, because that is one thing that's hilarious.
Text Hope NY, my guy.
1-800-GAMBLER, 1-800-BETS-OFF. There's like a bunch of different ones. If you have a gambling problem, you can call these hotlines.
Yeah.
So this person either is already rich enough that they can make a $2,500 bet just kind of on a whim, or there's somebody who needs to call those hotlines. But $1.7 million on a $2,500 bet, that, my friends, is a little ROI we can all get on board with.
That's awesome. Hats off to them. I do hope that they're not a degenerate and end up risking this money that they just
doubling
won.
it down.
Yeah. Now I got the Knicks winning the championship, all of it.
What if he just lets it ride?
The Knicks and the Carolina Hurricanes, all East championship, hockey and basketball.
I mean, he's playing with house money now. He just lets it ride on Knicks, Hurricanes,
or Vegas, San Antonio, all West.
Oh, yikes!
By the way, home of both the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Final. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Hockey starts tomorrow. Nick Olczyk at 1 to help us preview that. And then NBA starts Wednesday. Give me a big week here.
I was waiting for you to ask the most important question here. Who is this person?
Yeah, who's the person?
It's Brendan
Jeff
Sorsby.
Schwartz? Oh.
Just kidding. It's not.
It's Jeff Schwartz. Jeff, come on the show.
Jeff's like, I'm not coming on your stupid show anymore. I'm going to go spend this $1.7 million. Yeah, crazy. DraftKings parlay, four-legger. $2,500 turned into $1.7 million. But the more intriguing part of that story for me is that you have to believe so much in your picks that you turn down guaranteed money along the way. And I, my friends, do not have that much conviction in my predictive abilities. I'll tell you.
I would have taken the $500,000. I probably would have let it ride at 2-2. And then I don't know. I might have been tempted to buy out down 3-2, to take the buyout down 3-2.
Think of that. You still get almost $300,000, and like, it's just you're betting on the whims of, is Victor Wembanyama going to feel good in this next game?
Once the Spurs tied it and sent it to Game 7, though, I think I'd be like, you know what? I got to be okay with losing this $2,500 because I'm only one game away from winning 1.7. I think I'd just let it ride at that point.
That's where my gambling mentality is just wrong, and why I can't do it the way that some of these other people do it. Because for me, I'd be like, wait, I didn't lose $2,500 by saying no to this. I lost $600,000.
Yeah, by
saying no to this.
Yeah,
right?
See, and
really, this guy's probably like, it's only $2,500. And I'd be like, no, it's not. It's $608,000 or whatever.
See, I'm the bad game show guy in that sense too, because everyone's like, you lost the $500,000 question. Who wants to be a millionaire or whatever? Or you didn't take the deal and it was the wrong briefcase, deal or no deal. You ended up getting way less. You lost this much, and I'm always like, no, they lost nothing because it cost them. They lost the cost of the plane ticket. Like They made money no matter what here.
Yeah. That's a good mentality to have.
Yeah.
That's how you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Best investing advice I ever got was, because, you always like, oh my gosh, I should have held this longer.
Yeah.
Or I should have invested in this instead of this. And it's like, I made $1,000 instead of $10,000. Best advice I ever got. You can't lose when you win.
Yeah.
If you got the $1,000, yeah, maybe you could have had 10,000 somewhere else, but that was never yours. You didn't lose it. I actually, who had that mentality? Remember when Eric Weddle got
Brendan Sorsby?
Remember when Eric Weddle got screwed out of $1 million performance bonus?
Oh yeah,
in his NFL career, if they had made the playoffs, and there was a penalty that took away an interception that would have ended the game, and so he ended up losing the $1 million. And people are like, "Oh, you lost $1 million." He's like, "No, I didn't. I never had that $1 million." That is a good perspective to have.
Yeah. And now listen, I've never been in that situation to where I'm like, to where I'm like, I don't know. So I'll say this: I don't know if it's me, if I have evolved enough to be like, I never had that, like in a game show or whatever. The game show scenario I brought up, but watching other people do it, I'm like, he never had that. It's fine. He or she never had that. It's fine.
I am not that evolved. I'm like, that was mine and I lost it. All right,
Totally understandable.
Got to take a break. Blockbuster trade in the NFL. The Rams are going for it again, and I'll tell you how. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 792.1 FM. We got the Daily Dump coming here in about 18 minutes. We got Nick Olczyk joining us at 1 o'clock, Sports USA hockey analyst, and obviously Utah Mammoth work as well. Stanley Cup Finals starting this week. We are your home of both the Stanley Cup and the NBA Finals on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Also, a scary movie is coming to theaters this Friday. ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM want to send you to see it first. Text MOVIE to 33986 for your chance to win tickets. Scary movie. And it's not a re-release of the 2000 parody comedy. It's just they figure it's been 26 years so they can use the same title again.
Didn't they have like 4 of those at one point? So it's interesting that they went up Scary
to like
Movie 5 or
they
whatever.
went up to like Scary Movie 5.
Yeah.
And then they just started over.
Okay. Yeah, it's like It's like the Rocky Balboa. Remember when like 60-year-old Rocky getting in the ring again? It's like that one. The name of that show of that movie was Rocky Balboa, not Rocky 6. Which
at least they added the Balboa. This is literally the same.
This is just the same.
You know what?
I think Shaq was in the last Scary Movie however many years ago, still playing for the Miami Heat that long ago.
That's amazing. So 26 years removed from when the first Scary Movie came out, the new Scary Movie has come out, and the movie poster looks almost exactly the same as well. So Hollywood continuing with the imaginative IP. Well
Absolutely.
done. Well done, Hollywood.
Yeah, again, text movie to 33986 if you're interested in seeing the movie screening.
All right, it's all coming together. The Rams have a vision. The Rams have a plan, and part of that vision was rumored this weekend, was rumored today, and it looks like Myles Garrett to the Rams. Now, they're giving up Jared Verse, and at least the 2027 first-round pick. Draft pick compensation is still being finalized between the two teams, and, of course, pending physicals, which we now know are sometimes a nice little way to have buyer's remorse and just be like, just kidding, we don't want Max Crosby.
Yeah, Max Crosby. Remember the Max Crosby deal when you see the line, the deal is pending physicals. So it is not over till it's over, people. But it's far enough along that Adam Schefter is willing to break the news.
Also, Myles Garrett could be 150 years old and still pass a physical. That man is a freak of nature.
Apparently an incredible basketball player, which doesn't surprise me at all. You look at him and the size that he plays. So, like, just an all-around great athlete, not just great at tackling people and taking down quarterbacks. But, yeah, he's like a Greek god. Absolutely.
I know that this is like really uncouth and you shouldn't talk about these types of things because you don't want to mess in other people's personal lives, but his girlfriend is Chloe Kim, a gold medal Olympian. When you have two athletes of that caliber who are in a romantic relationship, I always root for it. I'm always cheering for success. All right?
You're thinking about how great their kids are going to be at sports, right?
I mean, think of it. There was a time when Serena Williams was dating LeVar Arrington.
That's right.
I was rooting for that relationship.
Yeah, that's too bad.
I was like, come on, kids.
And
you
now,
figure it out.
Who's she with now?
She's the founder of Reddit.
The Reddit guy. That's right.
Ohanian, whatever his last name is.
I always confuse which online media thing the guy, her husband owns, but it's Reddit.
What a terrible choice. You chose that billionaire over LeVar Arrington.
Think about the athleticism your kids could have had. Bam Adebayo dating Asia Wilson.
Asia Wilson? Perfect.
Yeah. They're like whoever, whether they have girls or boys or, some of both, they're going to be Hall of Fame NBA or WNBA players or whatever sport they choose to be.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you. I am rooting for Myles Garrett and Chloe Kim. I don't know where Chloe lives, but I'm sure she'll be happier to visit him in L.A. than in Cleveland. And if you're Jared Verse, you're probably just like, oh, thanks a lot, guys. What did I do to you? Now, Jared Verse is he's a promising player. He's a really, really good player, right? Jared Verse is younger than Myles Garrett significantly. And as much as people like Jared Verse, and Aaron Donald has been, he kind of like took Jared Verse under his wing. That was publicized pretty well. He was like, let me show you how to be a pro. Come over to my house and work out. And Jared Verse was very comically like, somebody call the police. This is torture. Jared Verse is a really, really good player. Jared Verse, in his first year in the league, had 4.5 sacks, and last year he had 7.5 sacks.
Yeah, he was defensive rookie of the year his first year. Obviously, you just said improved on it in his second year. Not like incredible improvement. He's still not a double-digit sack guy, but the trajectory is going up with him.
But make no mistake, as high as you want to be on Jared Verse, he is no Myles Garrett. Jared Verse's best season so far is equivalent to Myles Garrett's worst season in the NFL, which was his rookie season when it comes to sack production. He has...
That's bananas.
7 sacks as a rookie, 13.5 his second year, then 10, then 12, a back-to-back 16 sack seasons in 21-22, then 14 apiece in 23 and 24, and of course in 2025 he had 23 sacks.
7 sacks as a rookie is the low bar for him.
He's 30 years old. Myles Garrett, the LA Rams are hilarious in, like, remember how we were all like, why did you draft Ty Simpson? No one is going to be asking that question. That question is done. That question is over. That question never should have been asked, apparently. I still think it's a valid ask. But the Rams are on a one-year plan. Matthew Stafford was going into this time last year questioning whether or not his back was actually going to be, like, healthy enough to play. Remember, he was getting epidurals to make sure that he could manage the pain. It sounds like he is managing things a lot more successfully. Who knows what he got? Stem cells, human growth hormone, I don't know. But in any case, Matthew Stafford appears to be a lot healthier going into this season, and they still drafted a backup quarterback for him. They drafted potentially an heir apparent style quarterback. It didn't make a ton of sense for me when you have this Super Bowl window open, and now this trade is them just saying, like, man, we are giving away one of our best young players. Jared Verse is the future of our defense. We're giving him away because we want the present of our defense to be the best in the league.
This is now the second blockbuster trade they've made to add to their defense to OC. Before the draft, they traded for Trent McDuffie.
Yes.
The Kansas City. Obviously, this is way bigger than the Trent McDuffie deal, but that's also a significant deal. So they now have the pass rush check. They've improved the pass rush, even giving away their, like you said, what was the future of their defense and a really good young pass rusher in Jared Verse. They've improved the pass rush. And before that, they improved the secondary. Like, they're going to be an incredible defense next year, and they already have a really good offense, one of the best offenses in the league, led by Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua. Assuming and hoping that Puka Nacua gets his life in order a little bit, has gotten his life in order a little bit to have an incredible season again next year. Like, the Rams, you can't argue with how they've handled their offseason now, even with the still, I think, questionable, like you said. I still question taking a quarterback in the first round, but can't argue with it too much with the two trades they've pulled off.
There are a lot of teams in the NFL that really the model is you try to draft and you try to develop these young players, and the Rams are one of the only teams that are just like, nah, man, we're a transfer portal team. That's how we do our recruiting. We want guys that we already know are great players. It's an acknowledgement. You don't see it very often. It's an acknowledgement by the team through its moves, through its action, not through words, through its actions, that they know that it is now, and I won't say never, because obviously the NFL draft is designed to make sure that your never doesn't actually happen. But the Rams are playing like it's now or never. The Rams are acting like it's now or never because Matthew Stafford ain't going to be able to play at this MVP level for maybe even 2 more years, regardless of how long his contract is.
Yeah.
And by the way, the other thing about this is if Puka Nacua doesn't get his you-know-what figured out, how much longer are you going to have that guy on your team and producing the way that he is? If he keeps getting himself in all these messes away from football, like, you might have to capitalize on his young talent before you do what? Back up a Brinks trucks for him. You might not want to pay that guy $40 million a year to be unreliable or to be questionable. Unreliable is an unfair term because he's very reliable on the field. But to be a question mark off the field, maybe they're timing that in as well. Obviously, the quarterback situation is much more salient and much more important for you to worry about as a GM. But, man.
We were talking about this off air. This Myles Garrett deal was seemingly in the works, and it's still not completely official yet, pending physical. Remember Max Crosby, whenever you see that line, right? But assuming everything goes through there, we were talking about when they decided they were going to draft Ty Simpson, however long before the draft, if he was available. Do you think that they already knew that we were going to make a deal like this, and they that's how they might have calmed Matthew Stafford down after they seemingly drafted his successor?
I don't know, man, because if you're Matthew Stafford, yes, you want defensive talent to be brought in, obviously, but NFL teams are one team, but they're two very separate units, right? If you're a quarterback, you're like, why are you wasting a first-round draft pick on my backup when you could be getting me another piece to protect me? You could be getting me another piece to throw to. You could be getting me another piece to hand the ball off to. Yeah, or, I mean, maybe he sees the big picture enough and is like, why didn't you draft somebody in the first round that adds to our defense? And I guess in that case, if you're Snead and McVay, you got that little grin on your face. You're just like, just wait, Matthew. I promise you that while you just give us this year, I promise you our roster is going to be better this year than it was last year. They added the best defensive player in football potentially. You know how hard it is to trade for somebody like that? Now, if Cleveland was worth anything from an organizational standpoint, they would have done whatever was necessary to keep Myles Garrett happy. He was expressing his loyalty. I'm not going to demand a trade. I don't want to trade. I don't need a trade, up until the last couple of years when his patience was not paying off and he finally started to be like, well, you know. And that marriage started to fracture a little bit. I mean, if you're the Rams, you're just like, thank you, Cleveland, for being completely inept as a franchise. Well done. If you're Myles Garrett, if you're Myles Garrett, you're a 23-sack guy. You now get to look over at the offensive side of your team, and you see Matthew Stafford. You see Puka Nacua. You see all of these guys. Most importantly, you see Matthew Stafford instead of like, Shedeur Sanders is over there. That's the quarterback for us.
Maybe Deshaun Watson.
Like,
Dylan Gabriel, get excited.
You're now on a team whose offense looks like Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams. That's a great deal for Myles Garrett. Good job, Rams. Wonderful.
How's all this make you feel as a 49ers fan?
Oh, I'll tell you how it makes me feel. The Seattle Seahawks are the defending Super Bowl champs in your division.
And returning basically their same roster.
Yes. The Los Angeles Rams just acquired either the first, second, or third best defensive player in all of professional football while giving away lesser than that. And you've got a bunch of old stars on my San Francisco 49ers team that are overpaid. Cool.
Future of the quarterback position, though, you take Brock Purdy over Ty Simpson. There's that.
I guess so. There's that. Thanks
Wait
for the
till next year.
Thanks for the glass half full on that one. Hey, Trent Williams. We're glad to have you back at 39 years of age. I had no problem with Trent Williams blocking Jared Verse twice a year. I was 100% confident in that. Myles Garrett might be a different conversation. Just maybe.
Maybe if, like you said, if Trent Williams is 30 like Myles Garrett is, completely changes things. But 39 Trent Williams, still really good.
Still great.
Going against
awesome
30-year-old Myles Garrett gives you a little doubt.
And by the way, Myles Garrett probably wins even when they're both 30.
Yeah.
Because he's that dude.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that part of the conversation up, James.
I
feel great about it. Thanks for asking.
The elephant in the room. Just thought I'd broach it.
Yeah,
sorry.
Somebody tweeted that effectively the same thing at us earlier.
I saw that and went,
Jazzy,
wow.
Utah. Niners are never going to win a Super Bowl when the NFC West is a nuclear arms race every year. I know!
I hope Jazzy Utah is also a Niners fan, or else that was just salt in the wound trying to troll you a little bit.
I think probably
That's Niners
so.
in their bio.
The bio is a Utah Mammoth puck, and it's also a picture of Allegiant Stadium with the Niners versus Kansas City Chiefs logo on the side. So,
okay, so either a Chiefs or a Niners fan, I guess.
But most importantly, a Utah Utes fan, and that's all we care about.
And Mammoth, shout out.
There we go. All right. Thanks a lot, Rams. All right, Daily Dump is next. How did Utah football legend Eric Weddle become public enemy number one on Michigan Wolverines social media? And why is it actually bad for Utah that he did? I'll tell you next. During the Daily Dump on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. When you see the truck with the duck, just know this. They can handle your plumbing. They can handle your air conditioning needs. Your heater is probably fine, but it's a good time to have them come in, inspect the furnace, make sure that everything's going to be okay when you fire it back up in the fall. Tell them OC sent you. Go online at valleyplumbing.com, and you can make an appointment without even getting on the phone. You heard this in James Peterson's report. Serena Williams is back in pro tennis, 44 years old, and she's going to be competing in doubles next week. I don't think we're going to see Serena take a serious crack at a real Grand Slam type comeback, but there are people like her that in their respective sports are always going to be competitive, even against other pros. Now, we will say that Serena has lost it if she doesn't go out and dominate. We will say that Serena is not what she used to be, and that's probably true if she gets beat in anything. But, we're seeing this on social media allows this now, right? Where, who was it? It was Chad Ochocinco was, running races against college kids the other day.
That's right. Yeah.
And he's faster than them. He's in his mid-40s, or he's 40+, and people are just like, yeah, I could beat you now. You're old and you're washed. And it's like there are some people that are so elite when they're in their prime that we lose perspective on how large the gap is. Even when they come back down to earth, they're still better than the rest of us. And that's probably what we're going to see from Serena Williams. Anytime she wants to compete in anything, I want to see it. I want to at least know the result, because I think she is the best female athlete that has ever walked the face of the planet. And it would be really cool to see her do other sports as well. But tennis is her thing.
Yeah, and obviously doubles tennis at the Grand Slam level or otherwise, not near as high profile as singles tennis. But she's a 14-time Grand Slam winner alongside her sister Venus as a doubles player, too, in addition to 23 Grand Slams as a singles player. So she's got a better... I think one of the reasons why she's making the comeback to doubles is, one, it's easier when you have a teammate, right? It's easier to play tennis when you have a partner there. But also, she's got for that reason and other reasons, as a 44-year-old who hasn't played in 4 years, she's been a good enough doubles player to be like, I can win some tournaments this way. Maybe another Grand Slam is doubles. I don't know if I can do that in singles. Let me try to have a second career as a primary doubles player. I have no doubt she's going to be awesome.
I want to see if you put me and Serena Williams out there as a doubles team in a little mixed doubles,
see how good you guys could be.
Her greatness certainly makes up for my deficiencies almost all the way. Could we win not against a great pro team, but could we win against a average ranked below 100 mixed doubles team? Just I get Serena Williams and they get two actual tennis players.
She's like, let me serve the whole time. You be up at the net, or I don't know what would be the better thing.
She'd just be like, just please return one shot per game and we can win.
It's a cool story. I'd be very curious to see if she parlays this into a return to the singles game. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but I think she could do really well at this age with this much time in between matches at doubles for sure.
All right, this is a much more relevant story locally. This is interesting. Jamal Collier, who's an ESPN NBA insider, is reporting that Kevin Young, BYU basketball head coach, is a candidate for the Chicago Bulls job. Johnny Bryant's name has also been mentioned in that same category. Here's the thing: we'll focus on the Kevin Young, Johnny Bryant. If he's a candidate, go interview, take that job. Get yourself in there as a head coach, see what can happen. Do we believe that Kevin Young wants a kind of crappy NBA coaching job? I think that he was already well on his way to getting head coaching opportunities in the NBA when he was a Phoenix lead assistant. He had a great rapport with players. He had an incredible reputation amongst even star players in the NBA. And that is like half the battle now in NBA coaching circles. I think that Kevin Young is compensated the way he's compensated because everybody knows that he has these opportunities coming. I don't think outside of like the San Antonio Spurs or the Denver Nuggets or maybe the Utah Jazz or whomever, like a team that is at least on the rise and in playoff positioning at the very, very least, I don't think that he's taking a rebuild type job in the NBA over BYU. The resources, the opportunity, and I can't speak from experience, but it really does for a lot of these coaches at BYU. It really is a bit of a calling in addition to being your job. They take that, a lot of them take that very seriously. They get to be part of the mission statement at Brigham Young University, to be part of the church-run university. That matters to some of these people quite a bit. And I just don't foresee, if I'm a BYU basketball fan right now, I'm not looking at the Bulls job, even if they interview Kevin Young, as something that's going to steal my head coach away.
I'll say this. What do we always say with NFL jobs? Even guys who leave great college situations to take a lesser situation in the NFL. There's only 32 of these. And there's only 30 in the NBA. Kevin Young worked really hard before taking the BYU job, dedicated his life to a chance at becoming an NBA head coach one day, seemingly. If he's the lead candidate for the Bulls job, I think he probably takes it, because there's only 30 of those jobs, and if it doesn't work out for him, if the Bulls are just unsalvageable as a franchise at this point and they stay in rebuilding mode after, however many years he would be at the helm of the Bulls if he took this job, he won't necessarily be able to go back to BYU, although I think that would probably be a possibility, but he'll be able to get a big-time college coaching job probably any time. You don't know when you're going to get, as a would-be first-time head coach, you don't know when you will ever get another chance at a head coaching job. So I think he probably takes it if he's the lead candidate. We don't know that, by the way. We don't know if he's the lead candidate or if he's just one of the candidates. The report is he is being considered.
I think that if you're BYU, I think you're safe, unless it's a much more obviously appealing job where he could go work with a big-time star, where he could go work with a conference contender or someone at least on their way in a very kind of direct path to something like that. They've got a really good situation going on at BYU right now, and he is one of the top-paid coaches in all of college basketball, according to what information we can get about Kevin Young.
By the way, just going to the Johnny Bryant thing, I'm somewhat surprised with the way the conference finals turned out for Cleveland. Johnny Bryant is Cleveland's assistant coach right now. I think he's the lead assistant. I'm somewhat surprised that they decided to continue on with Kenny Atkinson. I only say somewhat because they did make it to the conference finals for the first time in forever. First time without LeBron in forever, too. And that's not nothing. But just getting swept in the fashion that they got swept in, and Johnny Bryant having a really good reputation as an assistant coach, being Donovan Mitchell's guy from the time he was a rookie in Utah. He was the guy who worked with Donovan Mitchell personally to make him into the player that he is. I kind of was like, maybe this is Johnny Bryant's time after their season ended. Maybe Donovan says, hey, promote Johnny already. But they're sticking with Kenny, and maybe he takes this Bulls job. If he's a top candidate, or if Kevin Young turns the Bulls down, maybe he takes it.
I don't know that Donovan Mitchell is liked right now in Cleveland enough to say, hey, This is what I want.
Yeah.
I mean, I really don't know. Because sometimes, like, there are some franchises where clearly the star players are pulling the strings, and they've kind of earned that right. Even if you don't like it, there are some places where you're just like, yeah, I mean, am I going to tell LeBron no to hiring JJ Redick if that's what he wants? Probably not, because there's just not anyone that can look him in the face and say, no, I've got better championship credentials than you. I've got if Phil Jackson is running your front office in LA, he's going to be like, you do the playing, I'll do the decision-making stuff. But right now in LA, there's not anybody with that level of sort of cachet over LeBron's. You kind of have to have some of that. And Cleveland also kind of doesn't have that. But James Harden, all he can say is, I've made an all-star team a bunch of times. And you can look back at him if you want to pick this fight. You can be like, uh-huh. And you've never won anything of import. So I'm not going to listen to you on this. And Donovan Mitchell, and I've told you many times, I'm a Donovan Mitchell fan. I like him. Same thing. Donovan Mitchell is starting to develop that reputation also. So if he comes in and says, I want that, you go, sorry, dude. Like, you don't get to dictate these things. There are very, very few players in the NBA who really deserve that right, if anyone does. There are very few that you can make the argument for. And Donovan Mitchell ain't one of them. So
you're probably right about that. I'll say this. I'll call back to this summer that Rudy and Donovan got traded. Quinn Snyder resigns as head coach as well. They hire Will Hardy before both those trades take place, right? Before the rumor of Donovan's getting traded, Rudy got traded, and right before the rumor of that's happening, well, actually, I'm sorry. Before Will Hardy gets hired as head coach, I'm like, Johnny Bryant's a finalist. And knowing he was Donovan Mitchell's guy, I'm like, Johnny Bryant's the head coach, because at that time we're thinking they want to still build around Donovan Mitchell, right? He doesn't get chosen, and that was my first indication, like, oh my gosh, Donovan Mitchell is probably getting traded. Because we didn't hear any reports of this. Just intuitively, I was like, Donovan Mitchell's telling the front office, I want Johnny as head coach. He had to have been. Intuitively, that's my thinking. He didn't have that cachet with the Jazz. He may not have that cachet with the Cavs. But it is interesting that Johnny's still looking for his first head coaching job. Maybe it's the Bulls.
Billy Donovan was apparently being paid $6 million to be the Bulls head coach. Roughly $6 million. We keep hearing that Kevin Young is kind of in the top 5 range in college basketball. And there's a pretty hefty spread between the 5th highest paid and the number 1 paid coach in college basketball. It's a $2.8 million or $2.6 million difference, excuse me. But if he's in the top 5, let's say he's making $7 million. You don't have to move your family. You don't have to leave to go coach the Bulls. But you can, and you're in the pros. It's not as black and white as it used to be, where you want to go coach pro if you can. All right, we're going to take another break here. I wanted to get to the Eric Weddle. Eric Weddle, this is better because we'll have a full segment to talk about just this. Eric Weddle made some comments that upset Michigan Wolverines football fans. They're not the kind of comments that you think. But they should probably also upset you as a Utah fan, potentially. And I'll tell you why. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Nick Olchik's going to join us in about 10 minutes to preview the Stanley Cup Final. Tuesday night is the first game of the Stanley Cup Final. We are your home of the Stanley Cup playoffs on the radio, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, the ESPN 700 app. Nick Olchik here in just a few minutes. All right. Eric Weddle got some flack, some blowback from Michigan fans because he went on a podcast, the 0 to 60 podcast, and he said, when asked about Bryce Underwood, the Michigan quarterback. Now, remember, as we've talked about with Dub, his son is a top recruit in the country. They were invited out to a lot of spring football camps, unofficial visits. I don't think any of them were officials yet for Gage, his son. Where, you know, they got to go to Georgia. They got to go to Michigan. They got to go all over the country because, first of all, Eric gets to go those places anyway as, you know, a highly respected NFL veteran with a lot of relationships in football. And also, you know, his son is a big-time recruit now. So he was asked about seeing Bryce Underwood in person, and this was the quote. "Mark my words, I was out there for spring ball. Don't be surprised if the backup is playing early because that Underwood kid, I don't think he could throw or play quarterback, so we'll see." He goes on, he extrapolates the point, and he says, quarterbacks should be taught to play quarterback from the pocket first, to be an athlete second. And a lot of young quarterbacks, they start out by, you know, playing football the way they did all their lives. They play backyard football. It's why Johnny Manziel wasn't successful in the NFL. It worked in college. For most players, it doesn't work in college. And you have to remember that Eric Weddle views all things through, like, the comparative lens of playing against Tom Brady, playing against Peyton Manning, playing with Phillip Rivers for so long, playing against elite quarterbacks. He knows what it's supposed to look like. And when the ball doesn't come off the hand the right way, when the mental processing isn't done quickly enough, he recognizes it in a way that you and I and most coaches, by the way, never, ever, ever would. So, of course, Michigan fans are just like, who is this guy? Why is he saying this about our dude? Because that's how we would react if some other teams, if Fred Warner was just like, I think this Devin Dampier kid stinks, right? The Utah message boards would be lighting up.
Even like, if we were to trade legends, Michigan legend talking about Devin Dampier, if it was Tom Brady, we'd be like, why are you talking about Utah, Tom?
If it's
You're
Charles
a Michigan
Woodson,
guy,
right?
Charles Woodson,
You're
yeah.
just like, oh, shut up. He's our guy. What are you talking about? You don't know anything about this guy. Shut up.
So it makes total sense, even though Eric Weddle is who he
Now,
is.
as a Utah fan, here's why you shouldn't like this statement either. Okay? And this is me getting really out on a limb, but if Eric Weddle is looking at this kid who's paid $7 million a year by the University of Michigan to be their quarterback, and he's saying, well, that kid's really good. That's the next Tom Brady. It makes it less likely that his son is going to play quarterback at the University of Michigan, his own son. Now, there's a lot of people who assume that Gage is he's going to be a safety in college. I'm not ready to do that. I'm not ready to say, well, because his dad was a safety. I think it actually makes a lot more sense from a personal standpoint if you don't play the same position as your dad, because then the comparisons are not nearly as direct.
But then if it's your best position, then you go ahead and play that position.
And
right?
it is right now, it's his best position. His instincts, his physicality, his willingness to play the game a way that a lot of young guys don't want to play it now, like, that's his best position. But also, right, if you have an option to be a quarterback, and he's going to get offered for both, right? Maybe not at Michigan. Maybe at Michigan because it's Kyle Whittingham who's the head coach. They're like, yeah, dude, you're going to play on defense. Jay Hill's like, we like you. You could throw the ball pretty well, but you're going to be a safety here. And
maybe we bring back the Weddle package for you, but that's it.
He's big, so maybe he ends up being a linebacker. I don't think he'll ever get that big, but maybe he does. In any case, that was where my mind went with this. Just like, wait a second. Because if Michigan wants Gage as a quarterback, and Gage wants to play quarterback, that might come down to whichever school lets him play quarterback, right? This happens sometimes where guys are great two-way athletes, they're great two-sport athletes, they're great whatever, and the school that gets you is the school that lets you play the position you want to play. We've heard plenty of these stories about we wanted Cole Bishop to come play safety here, and this other school wanted him to be a wide receiver, like a slot receiver. So he came here to play for us because we told him he could do what he wants to do. Especially at quarterback, there are plenty of guys who have that story where they're just like, yeah, I ended up going and playing for a smaller school because they would let me be a QB instead of going to play safety at the bigger school. I think Gage Weddle is going to have an opportunity from big schools to play quarterback. The biggest schools are going to want him to play safety, and I don't know which one he's going to want to do. And I know that his dad's going to give him advice, but they're not going to force him one way or another. So, also, we know that this coaching staff, this one that used to be at Utah and is now at Michigan, they're pretty good at communicating with kids, communicating with families, reading what that kid wants. And one of the ways that they will get a commitment, one of the ways that Kyle Whittingham got people to commit and play for the University of Utah is he would say, yes, of course, you're going to come play you're going to come play D tackle here. Yes, you're going to be a D lineman here. And then they come and they play D line for, they're a good young defensive lineman. And that seed gets planted. Maybe you'd actually be better if you moved offensive tackle, Sam Tevy. What do you think of that? Is that something you'd ever consider? No, I'm going to be a D lineman. I'm a D lineman. We got some pretty good depth at D line here. Maybe it'd be better for you to be an offensive lineman. Right? I mean, this staff was so good at this all the time. Chase Hansen, you're a quarterback, man. Yeah,
pick you up from the airport, quarterback.
Of course you're a quarterback. Yes, quarterback. Come play for us. Come play quarterback for us, quarterback.
Hey, you could be a really good safety and then linebacker.
What do you think, Chase? What do you think? The quarterback thing, you're good. You might have an NFL future if you switch over to the other side. I'm not saying that it was ever done deliberately, deceptively, but these coaches have a good knack for getting a read on what a kid wants to hear and letting him hear that when he needs to hear that, and then being like, but. I say it mostly tongue-in-cheek because I don't know how serious the interest is from the Weddle the younger to go to Michigan in the first place.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a deep tie with that program, except for now the coaching staff is there. I don't think money is going to be the big decision-making factor for him. I think that where his sister goes to school is a bigger worry for me.
It's a similar thing with Michigan now as it is down south at BYU, because he knows that coaching staff well too, because Weddle knows everybody on that staff really well, is friends with them. So yeah, it's a similar proposition there, but I would think that maybe more of a pull to BYU than there is to Michigan, but who knows?
And I still firmly believe the strongest pull is to the University of Utah.
Yeah.
I think that, and you can go, I mean, there's recruiters out there, there's recruiting insiders out there who are picking this, like his brain directly as often as they can. I have not even had these conversations, but I'm just painting my own imaginary picture. Eric Weddle is not impressed with Bryce Underwood.
It's perfect Weddle thing too, to just be like, this guy that everybody loves, he's not that good.
Well, it's why we love him, because when you have a certain credential as an athlete, you can say those things, right? Like, yeah, I don't know if he's going to be that good. And by the way, he doesn't even speak in a filtered manner about the Utah quarterback situation.
No, he was one of the first. Scott Mitchell was too, but they were both kind of in lockstep last year. Like, start Bird.
And that's while Devin Dampier is putting up good numbers.
They had just
playing great football.
They just beaten Cincinnati like 40-10. Like, start Bird already.
It's crazy. But that's our guy. He doesn't think Bryce Underwood has what it takes. Would be surprised to see the backup playing early because he thinks that Underwood can't throw.
I do love that he said he taught Gage to be a quarterback first as an offensive player. You're an incredible athlete. He knows that, but throw from the pocket. Learn how to get through your progressions. Read the defense. Know the offensive plays before you go, you know what, I'm going to bail and get a first down here. I do love that he expounded on it and said that's what you need your quarterback to do.
Well,
and he's not sure Bryce Underwood has learned to do that.
It's kind of like why LeBron James is what he is, because when you look at LeBron James's fundamentals as a basketball player, he is exceptional at being a basketball player. And then you just put all of those skills into one of the most impressive athletes that the human race has ever seen, right? There are plenty of guys who are like a Zion Williamson, who's just like, holy cow, look at that athleticism. Look at that explosiveness. Basketball skill.
Yeah, we'll teach him the rest of that. But he's got this.
Like you can get by in sports like football and especially sports like basketball, those two sports more than anything else. You can get by just on your body in those sports. The same is true in combat sports, in like MMA, definitely. You can get by on physicality to a certain extent, but there's always going to be a gap between the people who actually know the skill at an elite level. And of course, just like everything else, if you are a great athlete who also has great skill and also has great work ethic, you're the best. You're the one that separates from everybody else. But in football, if you're just a great athlete, you can get a long, long, long way. If you're just a great athlete with a great work ethic, you get even further. If you're just a great athlete with a great work ethic, but you don't have skill, there is going to be a ceiling. And those skills, especially at quarterback, matter so much. That's why the guys that are like that end up being safeties and linebackers. Like Chase Hansen, we all love Chase Hansen. He was never a particularly skilled quarterback. He was the best athlete on every team in every sport he was ever on growing up. So when you're a little leaguer and a high schooler, they make you the quarterback, and you're great at it to a certain extent. And then you get to a level where it's like now you also have to have the skill. You also have to have the right arm angle, the right release point, the right processing of what an opposing defense is doing. You can't just be like, oh, I'm fast, I'll pull the ball down and run. Anyway. Festival of Tees still going on, powered by the Utah Golf Association, brought to you by Mountain Home Services, here on the Sean O'Connell Show and on the Drive with Spence Checketts. We will give away a free round of golf later in the show in 40-ish minutes. All right, I'm a little late getting to Nick Olczyk, but we're going to preview the Stanley Cup Final next on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final, Vegas Knights versus Carolina Hurricanes, is tomorrow. You can listen to it right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. The television broadcast will be on ABC. Carolina, the favorites in Game 1, if that matters to you. Joining us to talk all things hockey and especially the Stanley Cup Final, Nick Olczyk, Utah Mammoth analyst, who, of course, also does work for Sports USA, was on the Eastern Conference Final there. Nick, welcome back to the show. How are you?
OC, great to be with you. Very exciting time right now with the Stanley Cup Final. Just a day away, and I know the excitement, the anticipation is growing, and having covered the entirety of the Eastern Conference Finals. And that was quite the series. Plenty to talk about, but great to be with you. Hope you're doing well. And by the way, I gotta say, I'm a big Uga Chaga fan, so I love the intro song there, "Hooked on a Feeling." That's one of my favorites. We just missed the best part, the Uga Chaga. That's where it's at.
That is the only downside when you're using great songs as radio bumpers. You can't let them get into where you need to get them sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, because we'll start with Carolina because you were just covering them so closely, and this is a team that was red hot in the first couple rounds, and obviously Montreal gave them a tougher test, but ultimately the Hurricanes pushed through and find themselves in the final. What makes you believe that maybe they could win it?
Well, the Carolina Hurricanes are a team that no matter the day of the week, no matter what month it is, whether it's regular season or playoffs, they know exactly how they're going to play. And they're suffocating. They force the opposition to drag them into the deep end, and they don't let them breathe. They don't take their foots off their necks as soon as they've got them in a position where there's a lead, where they can dictate the pace, especially at home. And with the Carolina Hurricanes, I mean, they have long been a team for the last bunch of years that just hasn't been able to get over the hump. 2 of the last 3 seasons in the Eastern Conference Final, they lost, of course, to the Florida Panthers. And I mean, look, for them right now, finally, I got the sense that I don't know if I would say relief is the word, but they finally said, okay, phew, now we proved what we knew all along, is that not only are we a great team, but a team that can have a berth in the Stanley Cup Final. And talking to a lot of the players, I mean, there is, and rightfully so, a supreme confidence of this group. And to me, it's the players that are most important, yes, because they're going out and getting the job done. But to me, it starts and ends with their head coach, Rod Brind'Amour. And I heard a pretty fascinating and mind-blowing statistic when I was in Raleigh heading into Game 5. And I had read that Rod Brind'Amour, going into Game 5, had taken part in either as a player or a coach of 97 of the Hurricanes' 99 career playoff wins, dating all the way back to the year 1999.
Whoa.
So, I mean, he has had his fingerprints. He has had his footprints all over the blueprint of the entire Carolina Hurricanes franchise history. And so now with that win in Game 5, now he's taken part in 98 of the 100 wins in their franchise history. So just pretty special considering his tenure both on the ice and behind the bench. And when I had a chance to ask him at a morning skate before Game 5, in typical Rod Brind'Amour fashion, the first answer out of his mouth had nothing to do with himself. He just says it has so much to do with the people, the other people that have been here for years, the other people that have been around with the team from the very beginning. And I think that's the culture. It takes everybody, and it's no different on the ice. I mean, the Carolina Hurricanes have 4 lines that can roll and 4 lines that can be dangerous, 4 lines that can score. And you look at them on the back end with the likes of arguably a top 3 U.S.-born defenseman in Jacob Slavin, who had a tough game in Game 1, but responded in Games 2 through 5 and was back to the unbelievable defensive defender that he has been his entire career. I think Jalen Chatfield is another guy that really impressed me as a right-handed puck-moving defenseman. He's not afraid to be physical, but the one guy that really stood out, I think, in a huge way is Keandre Miller. And when he came over from the New York Rangers, things had gone a little sour for him up in New York, needed to change his scenery. Everybody was wondering, is he going to be the defenseman that there was a lot of potential around, and especially in the Eastern Conference Finals, I think he took not just one step, but a couple of steps to becoming one of the better defensemen in the league, and knowing that that's a guy that can put you on your rear, he can put you into the third or fourth row, but also be reliable in his own zone to be able to move the puck. So I just think when you look at their four lines, you look at the defense core, and lastly, in terms of this team, Freddie Anderson has not only proved that he truly is one of the best goalies in the league, but he has found a way to stay healthy. And, we're continuing to send out our condolences and well wishes to him, because the incredibly unfortunate passing of Claude Lemieux. Claude Lemieux was actually Freddie Anderson's agent, and he had to play the next day after finding out the news that Claude Lemieux had passed. So, he's playing with a heavy heart, there's no doubt. But from the goaltender on out, this Carolina Hurricanes team, they're a well-oiled machine. They're a shooting machine, and you know what you're going to get from them each and every night. And that's one of the things, OC, that makes them hard to play against. You could know exactly what they're going to go at you with, and sometimes you still can't stop it because of how well conditioned they are, and considering the fact that they have steamrolled through the playoffs, having only lost one game, and of course those two series sweeps in round 1 and 2.
How close to healthy would you call this team? Because we saw that, attrition that happens, and I know that no team is without its bumps and bruises this deep into a season, but we saw that attrition really become a big factor in the Western Conference Final for Colorado. So is this Carolina team pretty healthy?
Yeah, I would say that they are pretty darn healthy. No major players out to speak of, and I think OZ hit the nail on the head. I mean, nobody's healthy this time of the year. And early in the series, Carolina was kind of waiting for some of their big boys to pick it up, waiting for some of their top offensive guys to come through with some production. And as the series went on, Sebastian Aho, his name started to appear more and more on the box score. Same with Andrei Svechnikov, who had a big overtime winner in the Eastern Conference Final as well. So while, yes, the old adage of no one's healthy this time of the year remains true, this is a team that's rearing and ready to go with pretty much the full complement of their roster, trying to capture their second Stanley Cup in 2 decades.
Right, well, there's the recency of how closely you were watching that Eastern Conference Final with Carolina, but you're also intimately familiar with this Vegas team because of the playoff series against the Mammoth, and obviously a team in the West that we see more often than we see teams like Carolina. This Vegas team got past what was all year long the best team in the NHL. They made Colorado look mortal, and I know the injuries definitely played a factor there, but Vegas took advantage of its opportunities in that Western Conference Final, and here they are on the precipice of another cup. And I just wanted to get your overall thoughts on how well it has worked out for them basically since that Utah Mammoth series.
Well, the Vegas Golden Knights are a team that, they have proven time and time again that they're going to do whatever it takes to win. That's with players, shipping players in or out. That's management. It's making tough decisions. It's firing your Stanley Cup winning head coach, Bruce Cassidy, with less than 10 games remaining in the season. And all of a sudden, here comes John Tortorella. And as he put it, essentially and figuratively slapping his team in the face, saying, hey, I'm not coming in here to change anything. I'm coming in here to remind you of what a great hockey team you are. And look at them now. So, it has been an amazing run for John Tortorella there in Vegas. And whether there were injury issues this year for the Golden Knights, whether they got really, really, really poor goaltending for the vast majority of the season, that was a contributing factor as to the lack of their success and why they were teetering towards the last third of the season as to whether they would make the playoffs or not. All of a sudden now Carter Hart, who was hurt during the majority of that time, is back, and he has performed in a huge way for his team and has been, I'm happy to say, as big of a reason as any why Vegas is where they're at right now. And by happy to say, that's just the fact. You can make a case that the Vegas Golden Knights are playing a few more games in the series or aren't where they are if not for Carter Hart's performance. And look, it's never just one guy, of course, but you look up and down their roster and how about the the playoffs for Pavel Dorofeyev. I mean, it took him, I think it was 3 games to get his first goal in the opening round against the Utah Mammoth. Now he's got 10. Jack Eichel, 16 assists. And the guy that I think if you're a pure hockey fan, if you love the game, you want to see players do well and succeed, I think anybody that has that mindset, that mentality, you're happy for Mitch Marner. Look, things went the way that they did in Toronto. It just didn't work out. Now all of a sudden he's got a new lease on life in Vegas, part of a team that obviously now very much a Stanley Cup contender. And look at what he's done leading the Vegas Golden Knights with 21 points. Because on his day, and even on a day where maybe he's feeling it halfway or he's 50%, he's still one of the most elite two-way players in the entire National Hockey League. So up and down this roster, OC, similar to Carolina, they can play any way you want. They got forwards that are crashers and bangers. When you think about Nick Dowd and Keegan Colasar, and you have that superstar factor, of course, as well with the likes of Jack Eichel and Mitch Marner. You can go on and down the list. And then the back end, puck movers, guys that can be physical and go back on pucks and get them quickly out of their own zone. When you think about Shea Theodore, Caden Korzak has had a nice playoffs as well. And then now they've got a goaltender that has given them a chance every night and then some on a lot of their occasions so far in the postseason. So this is going to be a heck of a series. I don't see it being a short series, considering I think that there's some real similarities in between these two teams, meaning that they can adapt game to game. If it's chippy, they have the personnel to thrive in those moments. If it's overly physical, they can handle it. If it's a game that turns into a bit of a run-and-gun game, they got no problem playing that either. You got two goaltenders that have been feeling all playoff long, and superstars that on both sides seem to be heating up at the right time. I just get the sense that this series in this Stanley Cup final has all the makings to be the opposite of quick. Yeah, I think this could end up being a series that goes at least 6 games, 7 games, and give us an epic Stanley Cup final here in 2026.
You and I have talked about this before, and you just referenced Hart and what he has done in the crease for Vegas so far. And is there a way to explain it when a guy just figures it out in goal? Because, I mean, this is not exactly how his entire season was going, injury notwithstanding.
Mm-hmm.
That's not exactly how his entire career has gone. I don't know how many people would have said that's the guy who's going to be as responsible as anyone else for a cup run for Vegas.
Oh,
I mean, I know that John Tortorella had a lot of confidence in him. Is it that partnership that helped figure this out?
I think that could very well play a huge role there, OC. I think that's a great point. And those two know each other back from their Philadelphia days when John Tortorella was coaching the Flyers and Carter Hart was breaking into the NHL there and trying to establish himself as a number one, as a guy that belongs in the National Hockey League. And obviously all of the off-ice issues that went on for Carter Hart, and now all of a sudden he's back in the crease. And look, when you look at the numbers, when you look at the stats, when you look at how he's played, the one thing you cannot deny is how important he has been for the Vegas Golden Knights reaching this moment of being in yet another Stanley Cup final. So I think I'm going to be completely honest with you, and I don't know the goaltending position as much as I do maybe the mentality of a player. But I think it's just like anything in life. When you're surrounded by people that want you to succeed, that are there for you, and of course it helps to have some familiarity, like the point you brought up with John Tortorella. I think all of those elements create an environment where a player can thrive. And when a player's mind and mental is thriving, then all of a sudden
We lost Nick Olczyk.
on both sides that are hitting full stride at the exact moment where you would write it and script it if you possibly could.
So I'm prone to, flights of fancy and being revisionist in my history, but if Vegas ends up hoisting this cup, I'm never going to get over the fact that this Mammoth team was 52 seconds away from going up 3-1 in that series.
Yeah.
And I know that that's just how sports are. It's why we love them. It's why we hate them, right? But is there anything we can read off of Vegas's success about our Utah Mammoth?
Okay, I'm going to give you this, OC, and it's going to be pretty straight, simple, and to the point. Did we know Vegas is a good team? Yes. Going into the first round, did we know that it was going to be a battle? Yes. But I think Vegas going to the Cup final, considering how their year ended, opens up two doors. First door is, I wonder that if the coaching changes that were made late in the year by both Vegas and the New York Islanders, obviously, the Islanders didn't end up where they wanted to be, but for Vegas, you wonder if that becomes more of a common theme as the years go on. If management doesn't like how their team is spiraling, as opposed to allowing the current administration and the current head coach to try to fix it, is firing a coach with less than 10 minutes left to go, or less than 10 games left in the season, is that going to become something that we see? It very well could be. But the main point to make, I think, with this is just get in. Just get into the playoffs, and it doesn't matter. Just get in, and you never know what can happen. Your goaltender could catch fire. Your top guys could reach a level that maybe you never thought. An unsung hero could help lead you all the way to where you want to go. So I think really it's those two interesting parts when you think about Vegas and how they've gotten to this point. Is that John Tortorella came in and he helped rescue the season for them, made sure that they got into the playoffs, and now the rest is history. And so, of course, if Vegas would have lost in the second round, we could be sitting here and kicking ourselves and saying, I can't believe we lost to the team that only won, or that ended up losing the following series. No, Vegas is a hell of a team, and on their day, they are one of the better teams in the entire league. And so for Utah, I think they're exactly where they need to be. Would you have loved to have won the first round? Yeah, of course, absolutely. But you look at the year-over-year success that the Mammoth have had. Head coach Andre Tourigny's winning percentage has increased each of the last 6 seasons. I think that's only been done by 2 other coaches in NHL history. So this team, they're going in the right direction. And so can you sit here and the pill's a little bit easier to swallow because you lost in round 1 to the team that's now vying for a Stanley Cup? Yeah, I guess you could maybe make the case, but with how hungry those guys are, with how upset the Mammoth players and staff were having lost, that's just the way that the cookie crumbles. But that's going to be something that drives them to have even better summers and to come back next year and make sure that when they do make the playoffs, that they can. The next step is to win round 1 and go from there.
Last thing before I let you go, and I know you were still working for Sports USA, so that takes the bulk of the attention, but we saw a lot of these Mammoth prospects still playing in juniors and having a lot of success up in Canada, and Gabe Smith especially just dominating up there. And, this is the pipeline that eventually will be on NHL ice for the Utah Mammoth. So against the backdrop of the improvement that you already alluded to with the first 2 seasons, and now, maybe some of these guys rounding closer to NHL form, I mean, how much different do you think the roster could look next year? Even if it's fourth line guys, these young cats, I mean, is there room with what we saw last year and what's coming up the pipeline?
And you hit the nail on the head, because now all of a sudden there's going to be some real competition, and there's going to be some contracts that are up, some players that are going to be UFAs this summer, unrestricted free agents, meaning that they don't have a contract. And is Bill Armstrong and Chris Armstrong and their staff, are they going to choose to re-sign some of those guys? But all of a sudden now you're going to have some spots for Mammoth top prospects to come in and make a difference. I mean, what an incredible year for TJ Gendla. Seemingly all you ever saw were highlight reel goals, were him setting points records and leading his team in points and just having an incredible year. And that's, to me, a guy that's going to be a difference maker. And at least from what I've seen in camp, both in development camp last year, into main camp last year, he's finally healthy after the 2 lower body procedures, and he came back and he had one heck of a season. That, to me, aside from where he was drafted, first ever draft pick by the Utah, formerly known as the Utah Hockey Club, I think this kid's got an incredible future. And Caleb Denoyer is another one, a first-round pick last season. It really seems like he's going to end up being the complete 200-foot center that any team wants as a number 1 or a number 2 up the middle. And obviously, with the steps and evolution that Logan Cooley has taken on the last couple of years, he's only going to get better. I'm really happy you brought up the name Gabe Smith, because I've had some people tell me that they think he is going to be better than anybody really ever projected, because of the size, because of the jam that he plays with, the ability to produce and to score and to really kind of do everything. And when you look at the Mammoth roster, you've got some size in the bottom six, yes. But, when you look at the top six, could they get a little bit more beefy there? Could they get a little bit bigger? Yes. And so all of a sudden now you've got a guy like a Gabe Smith who could at some point, maybe make his way and talk his way into that conversation and play his way into that type of role. So, the great news is that these guys are getting incredible experience as they had on their playoff runs and Memorial Cup runs. And that's only going to help them when they get to the National Hockey League, continuing to learn what it's like to play in those intense moments and where your season's on the line, your game's on the line. And look, nothing's like the National Hockey League, but the more times as a player, as a person, that you can test yourself in the highest stakes moment of that time in your life, I think that's only going to be a valuable experience that those guys can rely on and move on. But the good news is, you don't need me to tell you. All you got to go do is search online for top prospect pools, and the Utah Mammoth are unanimously among the top. And so the present is very much in the good hands with the guys that are currently on the roster, and the guys that haven't even worn a Mammoth jersey yet. Those are the guys that everybody should really be looking out for.
So what's the Nick Olczyk summer plan here in Utah?
Yeah, it's actually going to be a pretty busy summer. Some travels going on. Was so awesome to be part of the Eastern Conference final coverage with Sports USA. Larry Kahn, who is the head of that, and of course his wife Nancy too, who I'm just so honored to be able to work for them and to get a chance to work with a couple of who I think are some of the best in the business. Johnny Forslund doing play-by-play and Jimmy Fox doing color. It was so much fun to be with those guys and two incredible humans off of the air and just as good as what they do on the air. Hall of Famers, in my opinion. So it was great to start a couple of the warm months here working with those guys. And please, I think you guys are covering it there you guys are carrying it, right, on ESPN 700, the final?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, yeah, exactly. So Johnny Forsman will be back, and then my dad will Eddie Olczyk will be doing color as well, and then Billy Jaffe, who did the West sideline reporting, he'll be coming over and having your coverage there. So it's bound to be an entertaining final as far as the radio commentary goes. So everybody just please tune in, and Sports USA will have everything covered for you. But OC, quickly, you asked in terms of the summer, definitely going to be based here out of Utah. I'm playing in a couple of softball leagues. I'm a big baseball guy in the summer, so anything I can do to remind me of maybe one dream I had at one point of playing on the baseball diamond in the majors, living out that partial dream on the softball fields. So got that going on. We'll try to get back home to see my family in Chicago. Got a trip down to Florida in July. And my best friend's actually getting married. So I've got his wedding to attend, his bachelor party to plan, and I'm actually officiating a wedding as well. So it'll be yeah. So a lot of planning, a lot of times of fun to be had. But I'm excited to spend a good chunk of time here as well in Utah golfing, and as I mentioned, playing softball and just trying to squeeze everything that I can out of the great summer here in the great state of Utah.
Well, hopefully sooner than later, you're also going to have a Major League Baseball team here in Utah, if the recent reports are to be believed. So,
that would be pretty special. I'm a guy that bleeds blue because of the Chicago Cubs, but I can tell you what, if Major League Baseball comes here to Utah, they will be instantaneously my number two, competing with number one. So we'll see how it plays out, but that'd be pretty special to have three of the major sports here in the Salt Lake area.
Nick, appreciate your time. Thanks so much. Enjoy the summer. We'll chat again soon.
Anytime, OC. Keep up the great work. You guys have a great rest of the day.
Nick Olczyk, Sports USA and Utah Mammoth hockey analyst. He was on the Eastern Conference Finals for Sports USA. And as he said, his dad will be on the Cup Final, which begins tomorrow right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM, your home for the Stanley Cup playoffs and the NBA Finals also. All right, quick update on the latest pertaining to Utah athletics and the Otro Capital private equity deal. There's a lot of hand-wringing, a lot of worry, a lot of craziness going on right now. I think we need to talk about it. It's the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. All right, a lot of people were texting me this. A Salt Lake Tribune article about the changes coming to the Utah Athletic Department as on Friday, the layoffs in the athletic department began. Now, part of this is you have to remember that there's a new company, Crimson Brand Partners. Crimson Brand Partners is the entity that will be managing the infusion of capital from Otro Capital, assuming the deal gets finalized, and everyone does assume that it will go all the way through. The layoffs began, and this is one of the things that everyone sort of laments when we're talking about private equity deals. This is one of the things that people have a hard time supporting about private equity when it gets involved in legacy institutions and athletics and things that you're more accustomed to seeing and hearing about as passion projects, or it becomes a very profit-driven and numbers-oriented game. And there's a negative connotation that comes with that. And we've talked about that since the beginning, since this deal was announced months and months ago. It was always part of the plan to process some Utah Athletics employees over to Crimson Brand Partner employees. The releases, the information that the employees in question got did inform that many, if not all, will have an opportunity to interview for similar positions with the new company. Now, I'm not telling you to feel good about that, because oftentimes that comes with a reduction in pay, or it comes with a compromised benefit or something like that when we're talking about private equity involvement. But I think that the initial reaction to it is incredibly understandable, but also is an incomplete story. We don't know exactly what the final product is going to look like. And when you compare two things, you should compare the final product to a final product, right? You should compare the most recent iteration of Utah Athletics Department to whatever the final hiring process for Crimson Brand Partners looks like. But this is where, again, you had to anticipate, if you were part of the process, part of the decision-making process in getting involved with this this landmark deal, this new infusion of capital, this thing that you just have not seen in college sports previously. Part of your job is to anticipate what the reaction is going to be. And this was one of the most easily predictable things. When you started to separate people from their employment, when you started to downsize, when you announce a reduction in force, which was the wordage that Mark Harlan announced, there are people who are going to be like, this is why I didn't want private equity involved in my athletic department. So, again, I am going to hold off final judgment, until we know how many of these people are transitioned to a new position, what those look like, if those end up being comparable in terms of salary, in terms of benefits, things like that. You can't just read the headline. And again, Jason Patacchio does a great job and gives as much information as possible, but you don't know the information until it's done. It sounds like the folks were informed their separation date will actually be June 30th, so they're going to be working for the next month, and then all impacted employees will have an opportunity to interview for a similar position with CBP. That's Crimson Brand Partners. So if you have an opportunity to interview, it doesn't mean that there's a 1-for-1 ratio of new jobs available, but if all of you have an opportunity to interview, no reason to panic yet. I hate seeing people lose jobs. It is like one of those like very grown-up things that you're just like, oof. It's tough to swallow. It's a difficult thing. It's something that, depending on what field you work in, you probably worry about all the time, right? We work in a business in sports entertainment that is anything but secure. It is a very, very fickle business. It's a difficult thing to know whether or not you're going to have a contract next year, whether or not, your side gig is going to exist next year. So I don't like when people have to worry about these things, and I don't like that these headlines, and they are national headlines, by the way, because this is a national story, that Utah was the first to take this venture into a fully fleshed out partnership with a private equity firm. This is in USA Today. This is in National Pub. This is the New York Times is reporting on this. It's not normal for the New York Times to be reporting on job changes in the University of Utah Athletic Department, but you're under a microscope right now, and it needs to be handled very, very, very correctly. So fingers crossed with some optimistic confidence that it will be handled as correctly as possible.
Yeah, I'll just echo what you said about it's not really the time to be unleashing all. If you are very critical of private equity, if you are one that's like, this is why I hated this deal when it was announced. It's not necessarily the time to do that because of what we're talking about, how what you said about these people who are yes, they're losing their job right now, will have a chance at a similar job in a different department, basically CBP, technically a different company, but it's in all intents and purposes, it's a different department within the University of Utah Athletic Department. I'm not naive enough to think that all these people will get their same or similar job with CBP. Some of these people they're losing their job now. They're not getting one back, which sucks. But I'll just echo and say that's the time that we need to, if anyone's ready to throw out tons of criticism on private equity being part of college athletics, that's probably the time to do it. Let's wait and see how this fleshes out.
Well, the unfortunate reality is there's a lot of unknowns here, but Utah has one extra layer of unknowns when it comes to, and we talked with Dan Sorensen earlier on the show about this. There's a reason why this step was taken, and we're seeing now some of the reasons that are a little bit less fun to acknowledge. Part of the reason why this partnership was explored is because the athletic department has been operating at a deficit for a couple of years, right? And you don't want to continue that. The state auditor said, well, there's no obvious plan to improve this operating income moving forward. Well, that's what Otro Capital is supposed to be doing. That's what they're bringing to this. Not just their capital, but they're bringing operational expertise. They're bringing in, we think, hopefully, some sort of a plan on how to improve the operating income of the athletic department. And, of course, the big picture reason for that is because you want to be able, when new changes come and another shakeup happens in college sports, you want to be able to say, we're in a really good spot competitively. That's going to matter a lot. And we're in a good spot from a financial standpoint as well. Although I don't know how much that's going to matter. If the Big Ten wants you, they're not going to say, oh, well, they're $40 million in debt, so we don't want them anymore. That's just not how
UCLA.
That's not how it's going to work, right?
It didn't matter to them with the Bruins.
I mean, I promise you, when Rutgers was added to the Big Ten, their books were not in a good place.
No.
So there's a lot more to it than that. But I'm not ready to throw any stones at any glass houses until we know what is actually happening up there. There's too much uncertainty for me to just say, well, I know that private equity is a hot button thing and I don't like that, so I'm out, right? We're not going to do that.
Yeah, it's just this, and with this particular thing, with these layoffs is what they're being called. It's a transitional process that they're in, starting Crimson Brand Partners from scratch. And so it's just let's just hold off on some of the criticism until we see what the process yields is just what I would caution.
One last segment. We'll do a little crosstalk. Close out the show next. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Scary Movie coming to theaters Friday. ESPN 700 and 92 on FM. Want to send you to see it first. Text MOVIE to 33986 for your chance to win tickets. Time for a little crosstalk with Spence Checketts, brought to you by Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. $2,500 off, 10 windows or more. Lifetime warranty on those windows and improved energy efficiency in your home that will save you on energy costs. And maybe, just maybe, that energy savings could offset your monthly payment because they do have financing options at Advanced Window Products. Spence Checketts, host of The Drive. How was your weekend?
It was good. Mediocre golf, watching games, relaxing, spring cleaning. Tell me if you can relate to this.
Okay.
In our business, you get a lot of free stuff you don't want. T-shirts, sunglasses, and over the years I've accumulated a lot of just stuff I don't need, yet I haven't thrown it out.
Yeah.
So in my basement, like if you walked into my basement, you're like, are you a hoarder? Like what's up, man? So I finally decided to attack this pile.
Oh no.
That truly I've been just dragging with me every time I've moved, one house, one apartment, now this house. So I tackled that over the weekend. It's going to take some time, man. It's going to take some time.
Yes, we came to the realization that the closet that my wife and I share has reached critical mass. You cannot put another thing in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the local Deseret Industries is going to have a bunch of PFL shirts sooner than later.
True story. When I moved from my Sugar House home, it was the same deal. I had a garage full of just crap. And some of it wasn't crap. I just had to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So, 8 trips to the DI. Shout out to my friends who came over and helped me, carload after carload after carload. And about 2 weeks later, I went to, I think it was a Jazz game downtown. And a person experiencing homelessness, that's what we're supposed to say these days, totally wearing a golf shirt that I took to the TI. He's like,
that's
hey,
great.
You got $5? I'm like, no, I gave you that shirt, so we're good.
Yeah. I wonder what it is about human nature where we have this tendency to accumulate all that stuff and then a need to get rid of it and then immediately restart the process of accumulating more stuff.
It's a great point. I do two things. I say in my mind, I paid for that. I'm not getting rid of it. Or I'll look back and want to know that, I had that experience in 10, 15 years. Or hey, can I resell that at some point? The problem is, now the Gen Z kids are dressing the way we did in the 90s.
Yeah.
If I would have held on to my Abercrombie, dude, I had a grip of AF stuff, man. I would be able to offload that stuff and make some serious cash.
It's a shame that you didn't.
It's flawed thinking, though. I paid $50 for this shirt, so I'm going to keep it in the basement because I'm never going to wear it. So tackled that over the weekend. But, pumped to be on air today. A lot of stuff going on, man.
There's a lot going on.
Yep.
We now have an NBA Finals matchup
Yes,
between the San Antonio Spurs and the New York Knicks. Massive turnaround and improvement for the Spurs from last year, as anticipated, right? But we're in a situation where the Utah Jazz, by design, put themselves in a bad situation this year so they could turn it on next year. And there'll be a draft pick to add to that. It was a 34-game win improvement for the San Antonio Spurs from last year to this year. And I started the show today saying, all right, I don't expect the Jazz to make a finals run next year. However, they should be 25-plus wins if they're doing what we think they're doing over what they had this year, and they're now going to turn the tap back on, and these guys are actually going to play, and you're going to get A.J. DeBonsa or Darren Peterson. I'm looking at it and saying, all right, we went through the top 10 in the history of the NBA, the top 10 single-season turnarounds and things like that, and a lot of those were teams that went from, nothing to something important. Again, I think you're going to go from nothing to something marginally interesting, like a play-in situation. But if it's not a 24, 26, 28 game improvement over last year, I don't know that this plan is going to have felt like it was worth much.
So they won 22 games this year, right? So 25 would be 47. And that feels about right. A lot of people, after the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade and then after the Jazz grab too, a lot of local media went a little nuts about what to expect next year. Top 4 seed, home court advantage. In the Western Conference, to be a top 4 team next year, you are counting on a lot of teams taking massive steps backwards, and then the teams that are kind of in your cul-de-sac not taking the same jump you are. So I've kind of my expectation is Portland, Charlotte this year, 44 wins, play-in tournament. I think if you can do that, that's a massive win. The problem about anybody in the West talking about making a finals run is as long as this kid is healthy, I don't know. Look, name drop time. Ran into our guy, Steve Wojciechowski, Jazz assistant coach. Little hot yoga over the weekend, sweating some decisions out. No big deal.
All right.
And I say to him, I said, man, Wemby is here, isn't he? He goes, yeah, and he's not going anywhere for a long, long time.
That's right.
And then we were just talking about, he actually took some time and I appreciated it because I talked to him about, I thought Mike Brown intentionally started using Cat at the top of the key to plan maybe to play the Spurs in the finals and therefore get Wemby away from the basket. But what the Spurs do, and Woj just kind of walked me through this, they invert their defense. So he's basically always around the rim, even if you have a stretch 5. They'll put Stephon Castle on Cat and let Wemby kind of shade Josh Hart a little bit. And the problem is he's so long that if Josh Hart's in a corner shooting a 3 and Wemby's in the key, he can close out and make you think twice because he's just that long.
He can at least alter the shot.
Yeah, it's wild, man. So, look, I'm pumped that the Jazz will be serious next year. And I'm excited that Will Hardy will have permission to play his best players every night. And, this does have a little bit of when the Warriors were kind of Durant, Steph, Clay, it has that feel for like everyone's playing for second for now. As long as that kid, he's 22 years old.
Yes.
He just went on the road a Game 7 and won in a building that's impossible to win in. Now, yes, OKC was hurt. That was a generational moment for who now is this generation's that dude. LeBron, Mike, Wilt, whoever. He's here.
One of the best sports documentaries you can find is something, it's called Facing Ali. And it's Muhammad Ali's not in it, but they talk to all of the guys that fought Muhammad Ali. And it's all up and down talking about what losing to him did in their careers, the few that were able to beat him, what it did for them, where they're at now. It's a fascinating thing. But every time I see somebody like this come along, and you don't see it very often, and we asked this question last week, how many dudes are not going to win a championship because Victor Wembanyama is alive? And I'm looking at you, Cooper Flagg. I hope I'm not looking at you, Ace Bailey and AJ DeBonsa, but you have to look at it and say, man, because we saw John and Carl, two of the most reliable, steady, incredible players in the history of the NBA, even their highest aspirations and dreams turned away because of Michael Jeffrey Jordan. So, yeah, Victor Wembanyama is going to be that boogeyman for a lot of people.
Patrick Ewing, Sean Kemp, Gary Payton, Charles Barkley, right? I mean, so many great players in that generation. And all of the players I just named got to the finals. They just lost to that guy. LeBron has ripped rings off of people's fingers. It's what the generationally special players do. And it's why 4 years ago, I really wish the Jazz would have done what they did this year to potentially land that kid. Like, congrats on your 30 wins or whatever you got that year in like the number 10 pick. But everybody knew, like, whoever lands this unicorn has a chance to take over this generation. Now, as we saw with the Warriors when they played the Raptors in the finals, Steph gets hurt, Durant gets hurt, Clay gets hurt, Kawhi gets his ring. Things happen. One-offs happen, but it cannot be understated, the significance of that Game 7 win. Because I think the Knicks can win a couple games, but I don't think they can beat them. I think it's his time, and I think it's his time to mark the start of what's going to probably be his generation.
Well, you know what I love about where he's at right now, and who knows if he stays here. And again, health when you're 7'5" and 220 pounds is going to be a question at some point. But how much he cares right now.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Like, he cares a lot.
Yeah.
He is a dude that manifests visibly, nightly, the things that we want from our professional athletes, where I don't mean to be reductive. The NBA lost a little bit of that edge for a while where guys wanted to rip each other's throats out, and he does, which is really cool to see. I wish he was on the Utah Jazz. I hope the Utah Jazz have 11 players like that next year. But Wemby being the guy that he is and weeping his eyes out because he made it to the finals, that's pretty cool to see.
Absolutely. It's another thing that Woj brought up. It's not just how he plays. It is his mentality. It is how much he cares. He actually changed the All-Star game. For years, we said, what can they do to change the All-Star game? The answer was him, because he came out and he played hard, and those older vets were like, I don't want to get punked by this kid, so I need to play hard too. In so many ways, he's exactly what pro basketball needs. A lot of it is because he grew up elsewhere, so he's not buddies with the other 22-year-olds. All these kids now honestly start playing together when they're 12 and 13, because that's when we start noticing the next level, right? So especially this class, AJ, Darren, Boozer. Boozer played with Caleb Wilson on the same team. Like, they all know each other. So if you go to an NBA game, after the game, even the team that gets smoked, they're over dapping it up. What's up, dude? What are we doing afterwards? Good to see you.
They go to dinner together.
How's your mom? That's not how it used to be, because these kids didn't used to grow up to playing together. We didn't have this AAU system. So this kid grows up overseas, and he's just watching things from afar, and he doesn't give a rip about having dinner with you after the game. He wants to beat you. He wants to cut your throat. Then he wants to watch you die. And that's what Mike had. That's what Kobe had. I don't know that LeBron has ever really had that. He's just generationally awesome. He is a throwback, and he's also something that we simply have never seen before at that size. He plays like a guard, and he's 7'1". It's wild, dude. So for all of the excitement for the Jazz or anyone else in the Western Conference, as a result of what's happened this offseason, because they are so far ahead of schedule. And by the way, Dylan Harper, Stephon Castle, like, their wings outside of De'Aaron Fox and Harrison Barnes are kids. And top two teams with future draft capital, Oklahoma City, San Antonio. Like, it is going to take a perfect confluence of events for anyone, not the Spurs or the Thunder, to win the West for like a decade, dude. That's where we're at.
Yay!
I know. Sorry.
Stay tuned for The Drive. Thanks for listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. We'll do it again tomorrow on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.